Chapter 36:27. Not to mention the fact that Lin Yi wouldn't stay in the mining area for so long. By that time, the star inkstone would have already been bought by someone else. Thus, if he wanted to obtain the star inkstone, he had to think of a way to quickly earn spirit jades. It seemed that he had to find some time to test the feasibility of exchanging good jade for useless jade. Lin Yi secretly made up his mind. Apart from this, the speed at which he could earn spirit jades was too slow. Only this idea could maximize the effect of the jade space. Of course, this also had a lot of risk, so he had to test it out. Just as Lin Yi was secretly observing the star inkstone, the soaring sky pavilion inner court disciple next to him turned around to look at him. He was shocked to find that someone else knew the same thing as him, and his eyes were filled with the hostility of a competitor. However, after seeing Lin Yi's attire, this person's gaze became much more contemptuous, as if he no longer cared about Lin Yi. This wasn't strange, because in order to deceive others, Lin Yi had not only changed his face with the thousand silk mask, but his attire was also not the signature attire of the welcoming pavilion's new disciples, nor was it the attire of the three great pavilion's inner court disciples. Thus, in the eyes of bystanders, he was just a grassroots loose cultivator. Although the market square was open to all the cultivators of the northern island, compared to the disciples of the three great pavilions, grassroots loose cultivators were clearly the lowest group of people. Wanting this group of poor and shabby people to take out an astronomical sum like 1,000 spirit jades was more difficult than ascending to the heavens. This kind of person should be thanking the heavens and earth for taking advantage of the opening of the inner street to look around. Yet he still wanted to buy a treasure worth 1,000 spirit jades? Dream on. However, although he looked down on Lin Yi, this poor and shabby grassroots loose cultivator, it couldn't change the fact that this soaring sky pavilion inner court disciple was also embarrassingly poor. After greedily looking at the star inkstone a few more times, he could only resentfully turn around and leave. As he passed by Lin Yi, he said disdainfully, "Even a toad wants to eat swan meat. There really are all kinds of people in this day and age." Looking at the man's back, Lin Yi smiled faintly and shook his head. If one day he was the first to eat the swan meat, he didn't know what kind of expression this guy would have. After visiting the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Lin Yi took this opportunity to walk around the other shops in the inner street. Because he was concerned about the star inkstone, he didn't pay any particular attention to the other items. As for the heart-devouring exquisite grass that he had previously anticipated, he couldn't find it even after searching the entire inner street. It seemed that he would have to think of a way to obtain it during the Welcome Pavilion's newcomer trial. Leaving the market square, Lin Yi returned to his immortal cave. He sorted out the 5 kinds of medicinal herbs that he had bought before and placed them next to the jade pendant medicinal cauldron. This medicine cauldron was specially made for him by Han Jingjing when he was in the secular world. As long as the medicinal ingredients were prepared and placed in it, and the true qi of a heaven stage strength was injected, it could automatically refine a 3rd-grade medicinal pill. And if the true qi of a heaven stage great perfection was injected, it could refine a 4th-grade heavenly Tao golden pill. It could be said to be a true divine tool for alchemy. Thinking of Han Jingjing, Lin Yi suddenly became a little absent-minded. She had also come to this heavenly island, but she wasn't on the northern island. At this moment, where was she? "Jingjing, are you okay? Thank you for developing the automatic divine pesticide cauldron for me." Thinking of Han Jingjing, Lin Yi's gaze became resolute. For the sake of these familiar people, Lin Yi had to continue moving forward. Now that he wanted to refine the heavenly Tao golden pill, it could be said that everything was ready except for the east wind. Next, as long as he could get his hands on the heart-devouring exquisite grass, everything would be fine. Apart from refining the heavenly Tao golden pill to increase his strength, Lin Yi's other task now was to quickly earn spirit jades. After all, that piece of star inkstone might be bought at any time. The most reliable choice was to gather 1,000 spirit jades within a month and rush to buy it on the next opening day of the inner street. Otherwise, a long night would bring many dreams. However, the matter of exchanging good jade for useless jade still had to be carefully planned. If he rashly carried it out before then, he was afraid that it might attract unexpected trouble. The next day, Lin Yi went to Jade's spirit hall to mine as usual. However, at the entrance, he coincidentally bumped into Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong. He didn't know if these two deliberately blocked the way here. Seeing Lin Yi's figure from afar, Meng Tong immediately said impatiently, "Yo, isn't this the pretentious newbie? You've only rested for a day, and your chest tightness has already recovered? Junior brother Lin Yi, if your chest is tight, I suggest you rest for a few more days." Meng Jueguang pretended to be understanding and chuckled, "Senior brother, I don't dare to say anything else, but I can still grant you a few days of leave. After all, you're our Blue Cloud Pavilion's super newbie. If you become depressed because you can't dig out any good jade, then your senior brother will have committed a great sin. Don't you think so?" Lin Yi glanced at the two of them, and a playful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said, "Thank you for your understanding, senior brother Meng. However, after resting for a day yesterday, I've already adjusted my luck and accumulated quite a bit of karma. Who knows, I might be able to explode today." Upon hearing this, Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong both burst out laughing. Adjusted your luck? Accumulated karma? It turned out that this guy was actually an idiot. He could even say such stupid words. There was really no end to the path of idiocy. Haha, I didn't expect you to have such an amazing ability. Junior brother Lin Yi is indeed a genius who can stand out in the secular world. Then go ahead and dig. Today, please show us that you have an outburst. When the time comes, I'll definitely organize all the newbies in Blue Cloud Pavilion to observe and learn from you. Let's wait and see." Meng Jueguang and his companion laughed hysterically. They almost fainted from laughing so hard that they almost fainted. To think that the two of them had treated this idiot as their enemy. Now that they thought about it, they were simply blind. This Lin Yi, other than having good luck, was really useless. However, I, Meng Jueguang, am known as the Terminator of Luck. Let's wait and see. Then let's wait and see. Lin Yi turned around and entered mine number 10. 12 hours passed in the blink of an eye. It was time to hand over the work. Meng Jueguang had already gathered a bunch of newbies and waited at the door. Since this retard, Lin Yi, had taken the initiative to make a fool of himself and was eager to be abused, there was no reason to stop him. Of course, they had to cooperate fully. As usual, Lin Yi was the last to appear. When Meng Jueguang saw him, the first thing he said was, "Come, give a round of applause to our super newbie. Let him show us how he explodes today." Chapter 36-28. Meng Jueguang rejoiced inwardly. If he hadn't found someone to explore mine number 10 before, he might not have had the confidence to do so. But now, he was certain that Lin Yi wouldn't be able to dig up any good jade. So, the more people who saw this, the better. He immediately said loudly, "Let me introduce to those who don't know the situation. This is our Blue Cloud Pavilion's newcomer, Lin Yi." He guaranteed that he would be able to dig up good jade from mine number 10 today. If everyone has nothing else to do, please come and witness it. He can dig up good jade from mine number 10? This guy must be sick in the head. The others who were attracted over snorted disdainfully. Not necessarily. A few days ago, there was a rumor that someone dug up good jade from mine number 10, and it wasn't a small amount. Could it be this guy? Someone in the crowd retorted. Meng Jueguang turned his head to look at that person and said with a disdainful smile, "Then, do you want to make a bet with me? If Lin Yi dug up more than 3 pieces of good jade today, I will give you 10 pieces of spiritual jades. But if he doesn't dig up 3, you don't have to give me 10 pieces of spiritual jades. Just give me 5. Oh no, 3 pieces. How about it? Do you dare to make this bet?" I don't want to bet." That person immediately flinched. He had only heard about Lin Yi being able to dig up good jade from mine number 10. How could he dare to bet his hard-earned money on this bet? "SK, since you don't have the guts, why are you so arrogant, you coward?" Meng Jueguang sneered. His words made that person's face turn red. Meng Jueguang pointed at another person beside him and said, "You, looking at your expression, you seem to believe that Lin Yi can dig up good jade. Do you want to make a bet with me?" "I don't dare." The person who was pointed at by Meng Jueguang quickly shrunk his neck, causing the others to burst into laughter. Meng Jueguang curled his lips in disdain. He then pointed at the others and said, You, and you. Do you dare to bet with me? You can win 10 yuan with just 3 yuan. This is a rare opportunity. If you miss this opportunity, you won't get it again. Those who were pointed out by Meng Jueguang all became cowards, not daring to make a sound. What a joke. For miners like them, they could only earn 3 pieces of spiritual jades after a month of hard work. Who would be so stupid as to spend a month's hard-earned money on a complete stranger, Lin Yi? Digging out more than 3 pieces of good jade in the 10th dead mining area, this was a bet that they would definitely lose. Whoever agreed to it was definitely an idiot. A bunch of spineless cowards. Meng Jueguang glanced around proudly, and his gaze finally fell on 2 people. He teased, Xiao Ran, Xiao Hongkai. Aren't you 2 Lin Yi supporters? Don't you want to bet? Don't tell me you look down on your boss, Lin Yi, and want to switch to Meng Tong's faction. Although these words were unpleasant to hear, it was still a wise choice. I won't stop you. After being called out by Meng Jueguang in front of everyone, everyone's gaze instantly focused on the 2 of them. Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai were at a loss of what to do. The 2 of them did not sign up to mine at the mining area, so under normal circumstances, they would not appear here. This time, it was Meng Jueguang who had specially instructed Meng Tong to call the 2 of them over, so that they could witness Lin Yi's miserable state. To put it bluntly, it was to kill the chicken to warn the monkey. Since this was Meng Jueguang's order, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai naturally did not dare to disobey. Moreover, these days, Lin Yi's matter in the mining area had caused an uproar. As the saying goes, seeing is better than hearing about it. As Lin Yi's faction, it was reasonable for the 2 of them to be concerned about Lin Yi's situation. However, they did not expect such a thing to happen. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Meng Jueguang forced the 2 of them to express their stance. If they were to be like the others and say that they did not want to bet, not only would it be embarrassing, it would also make Lin Yi and even his senior brother feel disappointed. One had to know that the 2 of them were able to have their current cultivation cave abode. It was all thanks to Lin Yi's blessing. If they did not stand up to support Lin Yi now, wouldn't they be ungrateful? Could it be that Meng Jueguang said that they would really switch to Meng Tong's faction? However, if they wanted to bet, the 2 of them did not have the capital to do so. Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai only had 2 pieces of spiritual jades in their hands. These were the spiritual jades that Meng Jueguang had given to them previously. They had almost used up all the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. If they lost the bet and could not take out the spiritual jades, wouldn't that be giving others a weakness? At that time, no matter how Meng Jueguang wanted to deal with them, they would not be able to say a word of complaint. Moreover, judging from Lin Yi's current situation, once they agreed to this bet, they would almost certainly lose. There was not even the slightest possibility of getting lucky. Gambling, they did not have the capital to do so. If they did not gamble, they would be ungrateful. For a moment, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai were in a dilemma. Under the mocking gazes of the crowd, Meng Tong chuckled and said, although the 2 of you are trash, and even the way you look at people is a complete mess, but on account of the fact that we are fellow disciples, and on account of ninth cousin's face, I can reluctantly accept the 2 of you. In the future, you just have to serve me tea and water every day. Wahahaha. Serve tea and water? This was something that a small servant would do. As a dignified heaven-ranked expert, he was a powerful existence that was respected by tens of thousands of people. How could he be a servant? Moreover, it was impossible for the 2 of them to reconcile with Meng Tong. The crowd roared with laughter. Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongcai's faces instantly turned red. They wanted to open their mouths to refute, but they did not know what to say. After all, they did not have the spiritual jades on hand. Even if they wanted to accept the challenge, they did not have the confidence to do so. Seeing that they were about to lose face, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai were prepared to grit their teeth and endure this humiliation. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from outside. You guys bet with him. If you lose, I will pay the spiritual jades. The crowd instantly became restless. When they saw the face of the person clearly, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai could not help but be overjoyed. On the other hand, Meng Jueguang's face suddenly turned gloomy. I was wondering who was so arrogant. So it's junior brother Bitter Guy. Senior brother Bitter Guy walked over and looked at Meng Jueguang. Senior brother Meng, I will pay the spiritual jades that they bet with you. There shouldn't be a problem, right? Chapter 36-29. Fifth chapter. Update complete. This. All right then. Senior Brother Bitter's face stiffened. Although he was on Lin Yi's side, even he did not think that Lin Yi would be able to dig out more than 3 pieces of good jade in Dead Mine number 10. Meng Jueguang's words were purely to make him lose more and more miserably. However, even if he was not optimistic about Lin Yi, Senior Brother Bitter had no choice but to grit his teeth and agree. This was because today's matter was deliberately instigated by Meng Jueguang. It was no longer a matter of winning or losing. It had evolved into a head-on confrontation between the two factions of the Blue Cloud Pavilion's newcomers. Meng Jueguang, Meng Tong, and the other newcomers were on one side. Senior Brother Bitter, Lin Yi, and Xiao Ran were on the other side. The battlefield of this confrontation was this gambling house. Under such circumstances, even if he knew that this gambling house was bound to lose, Senior Brother Bitter could only choose to lose the jade but not the face. Although losing 5 pieces of spiritual jades was painful for him, in order to maintain the confidence of Lin Yi and the others in him, he could only accept it. Senior Brother Bitter, if we lose this time, we will definitely save up the spiritual jades and return them to you in the future. Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai looked at each other and said to Senior Brother Bitter gratefully. Although the two of them knew that they had no choice but to gamble in this situation, and there was a 99% chance that they would lose, no matter what, Senior Marshal Brother Bitter Corner was involved because of the two of them, so the two of them should be the ones to fork out the spirit jades. Even if they did not have enough spiritual jades now, they would be able to return them in the future. It's meaningless for the two of you to say this. Even if I lose this time, it doesn't matter. No matter what, I am a steward, Senior Brother. I can still afford to lose these few pieces of spiritual jades. And then again, if you support Lin Yi, isn't that equivalent to supporting me? How can I let you pay for it? Senior Brother Bitter smiled, but no matter how you looked at it, his smile looked bitter. 5 pieces of spiritual jades. For a low-level steward like Senior Marshal Brother who had no other means, this was a precious savings that could only be saved up for a few months. Lin Yi could not help but feel touched when he saw this scene. A friend in need is a friend indeed. It was precisely because of this that Senior Brother, Xiao Ran, and Xiao Hongkai were in dire straits. At this time, it was even more precious for them to stand up and support him. If these people had a lot of spiritual jades in their hands, it would not be strange for them to come forward and make this bet with Meng Jueguang. Just now, when Meng Jueguang was forcing Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, Lin Yi wanted to come forward and stop him. But now that Senior Brother Bitter was here, there was no need to waste too much effort. After all, he was the person involved. He definitely knew how many good jades there were and how many useless ones. At this time, if he participated in the bet directly, he might scare Meng Jueguang away. Lin Yi immediately smiled. Without saying anything more, he directly carried the basket and weighed it. Then, he sent it to the quality inspection. Today, he was destined to give these people a big surprise. Everyone was looking forward to it. Soon, the quality inspection officer gave the result. Lin Yi, 12 pieces of good jade, 7 pieces of useless jade, 20 pieces of garbage jade. Damn, 12 pieces of good jade. The whole place was in a complete mess, especially the confident Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong. This time, they were so shocked that they almost fell to the ground. Senior Brother Ma, the prospecting expert, had clearly promised that there would at most be 30 to 40 pieces of good jade in the number 10 dead mine, and it would take at least 2 to 3 months to dig all of them out. In other words, under normal circumstances, Lin Yi would be considered lucky if he could dig out 1 piece of good jade in a day. As for digging out 3 pieces in a day, that was simply impossible. Otherwise, Meng Jueguang would not dare to open his mouth and say that the odds were 3 to 10. After that, he even set a bet of 5 to 15. He had predicted that Lin Yi would not be able to dig out 3 pieces of good jade. That was why he dared to make such a bet. In the end, he dug out 12 pieces in a day. Instantly, everyone was so shocked that they did not dare to speak. 12 pieces of good jade in a day. What kind of concept was this? Not only could this instantly beat all of the number 7 mines under Blue Cloud Pavilion, even Mysterious Pavilion's number 5 and number 6 mines would be directly overshadowed. The number 4 mine was fine, but that was already Mysterious Pavilion's best and highest quality mine. Taking in everyone's shocked and bewildered expressions, Lin Yi could not help but reveal a mocking smile. In order to verify what he had said to Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong in the morning, he had deliberately hidden 3 pieces of spiritual jade today. Only then could he justifiably dig out 12 pieces of good jade and blind everyone's dog eyes. With the previous day's fruitless results as a foundation, Lin Yi had calculated that even if he suddenly exploded today, it would not raise any unwarranted suspicions. At most, they would think that he was just as lucky as before, but this time, his luck was especially explosive. Compared to the shock and bewilderment of the others, Senior Brother Bitter, Xiao Ran, and Xiao Hongkai were ecstatic. The 3 of them had originally thought that they would definitely lose this time. Senior Brother Bitter was even prepared to take out the 5 pieces of spiritual jade in his bosom. They did not expect that Lin Yi would actually give them such an incomparably huge surprise without saying a word. In this way, not only did Senior Brother Bitter not need to lose 5 pieces of spiritual jade, according to the previous bet, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai would be able to win 15 pieces of spiritual jade from Meng Jueguang. For the few of them who had long believed that they would lose, this was simply an unexpected windfall. Even if they won the lottery in the secular world, it would not be more than this. Meng Jueguang looked at the few of them who were overjoyed, and his face instantly turned extremely ugly. At this moment, he even wanted to give himself 2 slaps. Why did they make a bet with such a cheap mouth? Wasn't it a good thing to watch Lin Yi make a fool of himself? Otherwise, even if he did not watch, he would not have suffered such a huge loss. 15 pieces of spiritual jade, even for the slick Meng Jueguang. This was already a huge sum of money. If he really lost to Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, these 2 fellows whom he had always disliked, he was afraid that his liver would be in pain for the rest of the month. Let's go. Meng Jueguang quietly gave Meng Tong a meaningful look. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that everyone was still in shock to quietly slip away from the crowd. As long as he was not caught on the spot, with his convenient identity as the senior brother in charge, he could completely find an excuse to avoid this gambling debt in the future. However, Lin Yi had been staring at him for a long time. Obviously, he would not let him do as he wished. He immediately said loudly, "Senior Brother Meng, where are you in a hurry to go?" Chapter 36:30. Since Senior Meng is not in a hurry to go, then please honor the bet just now. All the brothers and sisters here can be witnesses to prove that Senior Meng is a man of his word and is open and above board. Lin Yi smiled faintly. After experiencing so many things before, he and Meng Jueguang were already irreconcilable like fire and water. With such a great opportunity that was delivered to his doorstep, he naturally had to let Meng Jueguang pay. With that said, not only Senior Ku Bai, Xiao Ran, and Xiao Hongkai, but also the others looked at Meng Jueguang with anticipation. After all, 15 pieces of spiritual jade was not a small amount. To be able to witness this scene with their own eyes, it would be a good topic of conversation in the future. These cultivators, who led boring lives every day, always liked to watch a good show. Even if they did not participate in it personally, as onlookers, they were more excited than the people involved. F*CK. This brat is really F*King treacherous. Meng Jueguang secretly cursed. After hearing what Lin Yi said, he was completely in a difficult position. According to Lin Yi's words, if he did not honor the bet now, wouldn't he be seen as a treacherous villain in the eyes of others? But this was a total of 15 pieces of spiritual jade. If he really took it out just like that, wouldn't his heart bleed in the future? Seeing that Meng Jueguang was still hesitating, Lin Yi said again, "Senior Meng, don't tell me that you don't have so many spiritual jades with you? That shouldn't be the case. For someone like Senior Meng who keeps his word, since he dared to make this bet just now, he must have prepared so many spiritual jades in his pocket. Otherwise, wouldn't his words be like farts? With so many pairs of eyes watching, I think our Senior Meng would definitely not do such a stupid thing." The meaning behind his words was too obvious. For a moment, Everyone looked at Meng Jueguang with a playful expression. If he continued to delay like this, he would definitely be killed. If he continued to delay like this, it would almost solidify the image of him talking like farts. If these words were spread, not to mention establishing any prestige in the future, no matter where he went, he would be pointed at. Meng Jueguang was a person who wanted to climb up. Naturally, he would not allow himself to carry such a stain. He had to bite the bullet and said, "Why are you in such a hurry? Did I say I won't give it on the spot? What a villain. But this is a mining area. My spiritual jades are all in my private workshop outside. I have to go out before I can give them to you." Everyone came to a sudden realization. Meng Jueguang's words were reasonable, given the strict supervision procedures of Spirit Jade Hall. Under normal circumstances, no one was allowed to bring anything in. Naturally, spiritual jades were included. In fact, even if they wanted to bring anything in, they would not be able to, much less bring it out. In the nature, they were equivalent to half of the staff of Lingyu Hall. Lingyu Master, Jueguang. Because they had to come here every year to help supervise the newcomers, they were equivalent to half of the staff of Lingyu Hall. Therefore, they had their own private workshop. Usually, they could rest here and also use it for storage. From Meng Jueguang's point of view, even if he really brought so many spiritual jades to Lingyu Hall, it must be stored in his own private workshop. That's fine. Anyway, it's just a few steps away. If fellow brothers and sisters are interested, please come along and witness it. Linny saw through Meng Jueguang's intention at a glance and immediately shouted to the crowd. Everyone present was going out anyway. Since it was along the way, they were naturally happy to watch the show and responded with a smile. Especially those who were pointed out by Meng Jueguang but did not dare to bet. They were especially enthusiastic. They could not wait to see Meng Jueguang vomit blood. This cunning bastard! Meng Jueguang secretly cursed. After all, there were so many people following to watch the show. Even if it was just to worry about the impact, it was not good for him to think of other means to deal with it. He could only obediently do as he was told. Meng Jueguang's private workshop was not far from the entrance. Under the supervision of Lin Yi and the crowd of onlookers, Meng Jueguang quickly came out with the spiritual jades. However, when he was just about to hand over 15 pieces of spiritual jades, the bitter senior brother on the side suddenly said, "Senior brother Meng, these should be good jades. You won't take out waste jades to fool us, right?" Meng Jueguang's heart suddenly trembled. In order to avoid vomiting blood, he deliberately took out a bag of waste jades. As long as Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai did not verify it in person, he could get away with it, just like how he deceived Lin Yi. If he was found to be waste jades after that, then he would be unscrupulous. He could completely say that the other party purposely used good jades as waste jades to frame him. At that time, everyone would have their reasons. As long as the public opinion was not one-sided, then he, Meng Jueguang, could completely ignore it. It was originally a good plan, but now that the bitter senior brother mentioned it, this matter was not easy to carry out. After all, if it was really verified to be waste jades in front of everyone, then he, Meng Jueguang, would lose all his face. Once his reputation was ruined, he would never be able to raise his head in the three great pavilions again. Meng Jueguang could not help but secretly think that he had miscalculated. How could he forget about the bitter senior brother? Lin Yi, that idiot, did not know how to verify spiritual jades, but the bitter senior brother was still very experienced. How is that possible? As the steward senior brother, would I do such a shameless thing? You are really gauging the heart of a gentleman with your own mean measure. Meng Jueguang retorted in a righteous manner. However, the hand that was reaching into his bosom to take out the spirit jades secretly trembled and replaced it with another bag of spirit jades. Fortunately, he had thought it through beforehand and prepared an extra bag of good spirit jades just in case. Otherwise, he would have really lost a lot of face this time. Under the instruction of the bitter senior brother, Xiao Ran took the bag of spiritual jades from Meng Jueguang's hand and let Xiao Hongkai count them in person. After they were done, they nodded at each other. All of them were good jades full of spiritual energy. There were 15 pieces, not one less. Senior brother Meng is indeed the steward senior brother. Every spit is a nail. You are really a role model for my generation. Lin Yi looked at Meng Jueguang with a smile that was not a smile. Meng Jueguang could not help but grit his teeth. In his eyes, Lin Yi's expression was as hateful as it could be. If it were not for the influence, he would have personally taught Lin Yi a lesson to vent the hatred in his heart. Chapter 36-31. Therefore, in the final analysis, it was always Lin Yi who made Meng Jueguang suffer. After experiencing so many things, he finally began to realize that as long as he did not kill Lin Yi, he would not have a good life. Just wait and see. Meng Jueguang gave Lin Yi a hateful stare, then led Meng Tong and the others away. Looking at this scene, Senior Brother Ku could not help but remind him worriedly, Junior Brother Lin, you have to be more careful in the future. Senior Brother Meng has never been a person who is willing to suffer losses, especially to a newcomer like you. He will definitely think of all kinds of ways to get revenge on you. According to his usual style, he's unscrupulous. Senior Brother Ku, don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Lin Yi smiled indifferently. In the face of powerful strength, all schemes and tricks were a joke. If Lin Yi's current strength of early-stage foundation establishment was not enough, then after he refined the Heavenly Path Golden Pill and advanced to the peak of early-stage foundation establishment, he could kill people like Meng Jueguang in one move. Naturally, there was nothing to be afraid of. At this time, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai discussed for a while, then handed over the bag containing 15 pieces of spiritual jade. Brother Lin, these spiritual jade are all earned by you. Both of us think that we can't accept it, so you should keep it. There are 15 pieces of spiritual jade here, and you two don't want it? Lin Yi looked at the two strangely. Although this bet was won because of him, and there was also the factor of forcing his senior brother, the two still took a huge risk to agree to the bet. Therefore, the 15 pieces of spirit jades belonged to the two of them. There was no doubt about it. Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai looked at each other and subconsciously swallowed. 15 pieces of spiritual jade. This was a huge sum of money that even a person like Meng Jueguang would feel heartache over. It would be *T to say that the two of them were not envious at all. In fact, because the two of them were on Lin Yi's side. Other than Xiao Ran's cave abode at the foot of the mountain, which was not bad, other cultivation resources were specially targeted by Meng Jueguang. It could be said to be a complete mess. These 15 pieces of spiritual jades were like charcoal in a snowy day for the two of them. If everything went smoothly, it was very possible for them to succeed in building their foundation with these spiritual jades. However, although the two of them had won the 15 pieces of spiritual jades, the premise was that Senior Brother Ku Bai had given them the gambling capital. Moreover, Senior Brother Ku Bai had only stood out because of Lin Yi. In fact, if it wasn't for Lin Yi's miraculous performance, they wouldn't have been able to win. With Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongsai's temperament, even if they were tempted by the 15 pieces of spiritual jades, they couldn't just accept it with a clear conscience. Hee, the two of you don't have to be so polite with Senior Brother Ku Bai and me. You need these spiritual jades. If you can successfully build your foundation in the future, then it will be the best use of it, right? As for me, you don't have to worry at all. Just trust that I won't let you down. Lin Yi smiled and comforted them. Senior Brother Ku Bai originally wanted to ask Lin Yi and the other two to divide the spiritual jades together. However, seeing that Lin Yi was so confident, he simply said, yes, the two of you keep it for yourselves. In the future, don't let Junior Brother Lin's painstaking efforts go to waste. This, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai looked at each other. Seeing that Lin Yi really didn't want the spiritual jades, they could only nod and said, all right then, I won't say any more polite words. If you need anything in the future, Brother Lin, just tell us. When saying this, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai had completely regarded themselves as Lin Yi's underlings. With their temperament, even if the 15 pieces of spiritual jades were tempting, it might not be enough to make them bow down. However, Lin Yi's performance since the first day had made the two of them sincerely convinced. They were willing to be under Lin Yi. Well said. Lin Yi smiled slightly. Although he had made enemies everywhere after coming to the Heaven Stage Island, he had unknowingly gathered a force. Senior Brother Ku Bai, Xiao Ran, and Xiao Honkai. These people could be counted as his group. Their overall strength didn't seem strong, but there was still a long way to go. With Lin Yi's help, it was only a matter of time before these people grew into masters who could take charge of their own affairs. Lin Yi paused for a moment, then he suddenly remembered something and said, "Oh, by the way, when you use these spiritual jades to cultivate, remember not to use up all the spiritual qi. Leave the last bit of spiritual qi for me. I will use it to fool people." Okay. Xiaoran and Yi Zichen were slightly taken aback, but they didn't ask any questions and immediately agreed. On the other hand, upon hearing Lin Yi's words, the bitter senior martial brother couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. With only the last trace of spirit qi left, it would become a completely useless jade. Who was Lin Yi going to fool with this useless jade? Could it be that he wanted to cheat it from Meng Jueguang and the others? In fact, the fact that Lin Yi was cheated by Meng Jueguang with a piece of useless jade, although it hadn't been completely spread, there was still a hint of it from Meng Tong's mouth. People like Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, who stayed in the cave and cultivated diligently all day long, didn't know about it, but the bitter senior martial brother had heard about it from others. He originally wanted to ask Lin Yi about it, but he was afraid of hurting Lin Yi's self-esteem, so he couldn't say it. Therefore, he specially came to see Lin Yi today. He didn't expect to encounter the scene of the bet just now. Junior martial brother Lin, in fact, I also have some waste jade with only the last trace of spirit qi. If you need it, I will send it to you in a few days. The bitter senior martial brother said on the side. Although it was known that waste jade with thin spirit qi had no value, and could neither be used for cultivation nor for trading, but people like the bitter senior martial brother would still leave the last trace of spirit qi to preserve it, so that the spirit jade would not break directly. He didn't have any ulterior motives, but Spirit Jade Hall had a waste jade recycling regulation. As long as 1,000 pieces of unbroken waste jade were collected, they could bring it to Spirit Jade Hall to exchange for a piece of good jade full of spirit qi. It was just that it was very troublesome to do so, and the return rate was very low. So many people disdained it. After all, for the vast majority of people, they might not even have 1,000 pieces of spirit jade in their lifetime, let alone waste jade used for cultivation. Chapter 36-32. But now that Lin Yi said that he had a use for the waste jade, senior brother Ku Pur, who was willing to take out good jade, would naturally not be reluctant to part with this bit of waste jade. "Thank you, senior brother Ku Pur," Lin Yi said happily. According to his plan, if he wanted to successfully buy the Star Inkstone, he had to be ahead of the other competitors, such as the inner sect disciple of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, whom he met at the Hong Chamber of Commerce. They might not be able to take out 1,000 spirit jade in a short amount of time, but for safety's sake, Lin Yi felt that it was best to buy the Inkstone before next month's open day in the inner streets. He'd have to wait for another month, and that would be troublesome. Therefore, he was in urgent need of waste jade, and senior brother Ku Pu was like charcoal in snowy weather. Hey, what's there to think? It's only 300 or 400 pieces of waste jade. Anyway, it's useless to pile them up there. If you need them, I'll give them all to you. Senior brother Ku Pu laughed. Although he was saving up the waste jade to exchange for good jade at Jade Spirit Hall, the value was not high. It was equivalent to saving old newspapers in the secular world and selling them as waste. He was more than happy to be able to help Lin Yi. Meng Jueguang kept giving Meng Tong cultivation resources, and he was also a senior brother in charge. What was a few pieces of waste jade? It was not even worth a piece of good jade. Therefore, when senior brother Ku Pu saw that Lin Yi was happy, he felt that he was not so useless. So many? That couldn't be better. Lin Yi immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Although he had the jade space, 1,000 spirit jade wasn't a small number. It was an astronomical number that most practitioners couldn't even dream of in their lifetimes. Even for Lin Yi, it was a challenge to gather that much jade in a month. Lin Yi was a man with a lot of spirit jade, but he didn't think that he would be able to gather that much in 1 month. Senior brother Ku Pu had solved 1/3 of the problem. The pressure on Lin Yi's body suddenly lessened. Next, he just had to think about how to use his good jade to exchange for the waste jade in the hands of others. From the looks of it, collecting 1,000 pieces of spirit jade in a month was not an impossible task. However, even so, it was still quite a challenge. If he couldn't find a suitable reason and took the initiative to exchange his own good jade for someone else's used jade, this matter would be too strange. It would easily attract the attention of people with ulterior motives. When that time came, it would be troublesome. At this moment, what Linny didn't know was that he was still having a headache about how to find someone to exchange the jade. His rival, Meng Tong, had already unknowingly helped him solve this problem. In the future, Meng Tong didn't even need to think about it. Meng Tong had already taken the initiative to send waste jades to him. When he realized this, Lin Yi couldn't help but sigh from the bottom of his heart. Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong really deserved their reputation as super nice people. Senior brother Ku accompanied Lin Yi and the others all the way back to the cave residence. Before he left, he suddenly remembered something. He slapped his head and said, "Oh right, I almost forgot to tell you. Tomorrow is the annual Public Guidance Day. Each of the 3 great pavilions will send an elder to welcome the new pavilion and specially guide you newcomers in your cultivation. According to the rules of previous years, everyone can ask 3 questions. Go back tonight and think about it. This is a very rare opportunity. Don't waste it." The reason why he specially came today, other than to see if he could help Lin Yi, was for this matter. Although it was reasonable to say that this matter was personally notified by Meng Jueguang in the past, senior brother Ku really didn't trust Meng Jueguang's character. Therefore, he specially came to inform Lin Yi and the others. Now it seemed that looking at the expressions of Lin Yi, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai, he was really right to come. Public Guidance Day? Lin Yi, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai were stunned at the same time. Listening to senior brother Ku's tone, it was a very important matter. Meng Jueguang, the eldest senior brother in charge, didn't mention a word to the 3 of them. It was estimated that he couldn't wait for the 3 of them to miss it for no reason. His intentions were really sinister. Although each person could only ask 3 questions, the other party was a big shot at the level of the elders of the 3 pavilions. Needless to say, his cultivation realm was far above that of ordinary people. It was very rare to get the opportunity to be personally guided by such a super master. It was not an exaggeration to say that it could be encountered but not sought. For newcomers like Lin Yi, if this opportunity was grasped well, the benefits they could get would be far more than the elixirs and spiritual jades they usually dreamed of. Maybe a few words of advice from the other party could save them decades or even hundreds of years of detours in the future. What a precious opportunity it was. Thank you for the reminder. Senior brother Ku. Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai obviously also realized that this opportunity was rare. After thanking him, they carried the spiritual jades and returned to their respective cave residences eagerly. Looking at the expressions of the 2 people, it was estimated that they would spend the whole night thinking about what questions to ask. Looking at the back of the 2 people, senior brother Ku couldn't help but laugh, then turned his head to look at Lin Yi and said earnestly, "Junior brother Lin, I know that your strength, talent, and temperament are far superior to ordinary people, but once you miss the opportunity to ask questions to the elders of the 3 pavilions, it may be difficult to encounter it again in the future, so you must grasp it well tomorrow." Senior brother Ku. "Don't worry, I know the importance." Linny nodded. In fact, Linny had just realized that compared to others, he needed to grasp this opportunity more. However, what Linny was going to ask was not the cultivation that everyone was concerned about, but a more critical and important question for him. The next day, the sun had just risen. If senior brother Ku hadn't specifically reminded him last night, Lin Yi would have gone to Lingyu Hall to mine at this time. But now he was waiting early in the main hall of the Welcome Pavilion like other newcomers. When he saw Lin Yi and the other 2 appear, Meng Jueguang's eyelids twitched obviously, and he spat with some disappointment. Although he also knew that because of the existence of senior brother Ku, the idea of making Lin Yi and the other 2 miss the Public Guidance Day was a little naive, he still couldn't help but want to play tricks. His heart was still bleeding from losing 15 spiritual jades yesterday. If he didn't find a chance to get it back, it would be really difficult to calm down. Small characters like Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai were still secondary. If he could find a way to make Lin Yi, his nemesis, suffer on this guidance day, it would be best to make him regret it for the rest of his life. That would be really satisfying. Chapter 36-33. Not to mention the elders of the other two pavilions. Even the elders of his own Blue Cloud Pavilion were big shots who stood at the top of the entire North Island of Heaven Stage Island. How could Meng Jueguang, a small steward at the bottom, speak to them? As the saying goes, the Prime Minister's doorstep is a 7th-grade official. Even the lowest handyman around these elders was a big shot that Meng Jueguang had to look up to. Even if he wanted to flatter them, he might not be able to do so. As for talking to these elders directly, it was simply a pipe dream. Even if he really had such a dream, Meng Jueguang might still be trembling in fear in his dream. At this time, there was a sudden commotion in the crowd. The sharp-eyed newcomers had already found that the elders of the 3 pavilions had finally arrived, accompanied by a large group of people led by Pavilion Master Hu Yunfeng in the distance. Got it. Meng Jueguang's eyes suddenly lit up. He saw an acquaintance among the 3 elders. It was Su Lingchong, young Master Su. Looking at his posture in front of the 3 elders, wouldn't it be a simple matter to ask him to help deal with Lin Yi? It was not strange for Su Lingchong to appear here, because this time, the elder of the Soaring Sky Pavilion was one of the members of the Supreme Elders Guild of the entire Heaven Stage Island's North Island, the 3rd elder of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, who was also Su Lingchong's grandfather, Su Yuanjing. As for the other 2 elders who came together, they were Xia Xian, the 5th elder of Mysterious Pavilion, and Zhao Hongba, the 4th elder of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Among the 3 elders, although Xia Xian of Mysterious Pavilion and Zhao Hongba of Blue Cloud Pavilion were also big shots that countless people looked up to, compared with Su Yuanjing, their status was still a notch lower. The reason was simple. Neither of them was a member of the Elders' Union, but Su Yuanjing was one of them. He could not enter the Elders' Union. It meant that he had no right to speak on many important matters of the 3 pavilions, and it meant that he was still one step away from the top level of the North Island. Therefore, even though Xia Xian and Zhao Hongba were both high and mighty elders, in front of Su Yuanjing, a giant of the Elders' Council, they inevitably had to lower their heads. Very naturally, Su Yuanjing became the undisputed number 1 figure on the Welcoming Pavilion's Public Guidance Day, and his grandson Su Lingchong, who was brought along by his side, also became the focus of the entire audience. In front of the 3 elders, he was calm and at ease. Out of respect for Su Yuanjing, even the 2 elders, Xia Xian and Zhao Hongba, didn't have the slightest intention of being high and mighty when they spoke to Su Lingchong. Their speech and actions were filled with amiability, causing the bystanders to be extremely envious. As for Hu Yunfeng and the others who accompanied them, they did not receive such good treatment. Other than smiling apologetically, they didn't even dare to breathe loudly in front of these 3 elders. They were afraid that they would accidentally make one of the elders unhappy and bring disaster to themselves. However, in addition to trembling with fear, Pavilion leader Hu Yunfeng was still very excited at the moment, because according to the usual practice in previous years, the elders sent by the 3 great pavilions to participate in the Public Instruction Day were usually the lowest-ranked elders in their respective pavilions. Even people like Xia Xian and Zhao Hongba might not be willing to show up. But this year, it wasn't just these 2. Even Su Yuanjing showed up in person. Being in the Elders' Council was a giant figure in the whole North Island. Su Yuanjing's appearance. For the small welcoming pavilion, it was an unprecedented event. It not only brought light to the entire welcoming pavilion, but also made Hu Yunfeng, the pavilion leader of the welcoming pavilion, proud. As long as he got Su Yuanjing's approval, wouldn't it be a matter of course for him to have a meteoric rise in the future? Hu Yunfeng nodded to Su Lingchong gratefully. He knew that all this was Su Lingchong's credit. Without young Master Su's help, a giant of the Elders' Council like Su Yuanjing would not come to the welcoming pavilion at all, and the elders of the other 2 pavilions, Xia Xian and Zhao Hongba, naturally would not come after hearing the news. The reason why the 2 of them came this time was to take the opportunity to get closer to Su Yuanjing. So in the final analysis, it was all thanks to Su Lingchong that the welcoming pavilion could have such an exaggerated and luxurious lineup on the Public Guidance Day. However, Su Lingchong obviously didn't care about this. The reason why he racked his brains to persuade his grandfather Su Yuanjing to come to the welcoming pavilion to help Hu Yunfeng was just a convenience. The main purpose was to show off his power and let some blind non-entities, such as Lin Yi, feel what it was like to look up to a high mountain. Seeing the appearance of the three elders headed by Su Yuanjing, the newcomers in the welcoming pavilion suddenly held their breath and stood on both sides, waiting for the three elders respectfully. Looking at the respectful behavior of the newcomers, Su Yuanjing nodded slightly and said, "Little Yun is not bad." When these four light words fell into his ears, Hu Yunfeng suddenly felt as if he had eaten a miracle medicine. His whole body felt comfortable, and it gave people the feeling that his most taboo, the gray hair, had become much darker and more spirited. Although calling him Little Yun was somewhat feminine, and if others called him that, it would be insulting. However, it was different when these words came from Su Yuanjing's mouth. Hu Yunfeng was overwhelmed by the favor. "Third elder, you flatter me. This is my responsibility." Hu Yunfeng quickly bowed and said. Originally, in this kind of public occasion, Hu Yunfeng, as the pavilion master of the welcoming pavilion, should call Su Yuanjing Elder Su. After all, the third elder was the internal address for Su Yuanjing by the Rising Sky Pavilion disciples. However, Hu Yunfeng still did so. His goal was to get close to Su Yuanjing. After all, he was a Rising Sky Pavilion disciple, so it was not wrong to call him that. When Su Yuanjing heard this, he looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. He saw through his intentions, but he did not point it out. Xie Xian and Zhao Hongba, who were at the side, frowned slightly, but they did not say anything for Su Yuanjing's sake. Now that the independent divisions had been wantonly occupied by the Rising Sky Pavilion, this was already the general trend. The welcoming pavilion was only a microcosm, so it was meaningless for the two of them to make a mountain out of a molehill. The three elders went on stage, and Su Yuanjing gave a brief lecture to the newcomers. Then, they dispersed. The three elders were responsible for guiding the newcomers in their respective pavilions, and they entered the official phase of the public instruction day. However, during this process, Linny noticed a small interlude. Taking advantage of the gap when Su Yuanjing was lecturing the newcomers, Meng Jueguang, who was supposed to be in his own Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomer team, sneaked behind Su Lingcheng and whispered something into his ear. During this time, the two of them looked in his direction with ill intentions. After that, Lin Yi and the other Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers were led by Meng Jueguang into the third hall of the welcoming pavilion to wait. Zhao Hongba, the fourth elder of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, whispered a few words to Su Lingcheng and delayed for a moment before walking in. Chapter 36-34. What the hell are these two up to? Seeing Meng Jueguang looking at him maliciously, Lin Yi's intuition told him that these people must be thinking of another way to trick him. However, when he thought about it, today was the public guidance day. No matter what, Zhao Hongba, the elder of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, would be involved. Not to mention the fact that Meng Jueguang's level was not high enough to hook up with him. In reality, even Su Lingcheng, the young master, would not be able to order Zhao Hongba to do anything, not to mention framing Lin Yi. Firstly, their strength and status were completely unequal. Even if Zhao Hongba treated Su Lingcheng differently for the sake of Su Yuanjing, it was only limited to the courtesy of an elder. It was absolutely impossible for them to be on equal footing, and he would not lower his status to curry favor with the other party. Secondly, the higher one's status was, the more one had to pay attention to their image. Even if Zhao Hongba really listened to Su Lingcheng's words and helped him deal with Lin Yi, the newcomer of Blue Cloud Pavilion, he definitely wouldn't dare to be too brazen. After all, if these words were to spread, he, the fourth elder of Blue Cloud Pavilion, would be drowned in the saliva of countless disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Thinking up to here, Linny couldn't help but feel a little more at ease. No matter what tricks Su Lingcheng, Meng Jueguang, and the others were playing, as long as he smoothly asked the questions and obtained the answers he wanted, then everything would be fine. However, what Linny didn't expect was that the first thing Zhao Hongba said when he came in was him. "Who is Lin Yi?" Lin Yi was taken aback. Following that, under the astonished gazes of the Blue Cloud Pavilion rookies, he calmly stood up and replying to fourth elder, "This disciple is Lin Yi." Zhao Hongba sized up Lin Yi and asked, "I heard that you have a good relationship with Lu Bianren?" As the fourth elder of Blue Cloud Pavilion, he had a lofty status. Naturally, he would not care about Lu Bianren, a mere third pavilion master of the Welcome Pavilion, and it was even more impossible for him to know about Lin Yi. These words were actually passed to his ears by Meng Jueguang through Su Lingchong's mouth. It was for the convenience of making an issue out of this and punishing Lin Yi. The development of the matter was far beyond his expectations, but Lin Yi was still unhurried. He nodded and said, "I don't dare. Pavilion Master Lu merely guided me." What a great way to help the younger generation advance. Zhao Hongba snorted and said, "Since he's so supportive of the younger generation, why didn't he show his face on such an important day? How disgraceful." Everyone looked at each other. Zhao Hongba, the fourth elder of Blue Cloud Pavilion, had openly criticized Lu Bianren. If this matter were to spread, it would be a disaster for Lu Bianren, who had already been marginalized by the Welcome Pavilion. But to be honest, Lu Bianren, the third pavilion master of the Welcoming Pavilion from Blue Cloud Pavilion, didn't even show up on such a day. This was indeed a bit unreasonable. If someone deliberately made an issue out of this matter, it was not impossible for Lu Bianren to be removed from the position of the third pavilion master of the Welcoming Pavilion. Lin Yi and senior brother Lu Bianren looked at each other helplessly. They instantly knew that Lu Bianren had been tricked. Moreover, it should be by Pavilion Master Hu Yunfeng, Deputy Pavilion Master Feng Song, and even Su Lingchong and Meng Jueguang. He had been tricked by this large group of people, intentionally or unintentionally. Lu Bianren was now stationed at the back cliff. Within a radius of 30 miles, not even a ghost could be seen. Although the Open Guidance Day was held every year, it had never been set a specific date. It was completely decided by the wishes of the three pavilion masters. In other words, if Hu Yunfeng and Feng Song hadn't sent someone to inform him, he wouldn't have known that today was the Open Guidance Day. He didn't even know whether today was the Open Guidance Day or not. Usually, without the permission of Pavilion Master Hu Yunfeng, Lu Bianren couldn't leave his post without permission. It was normal that he didn't show up at this time. However, he didn't expect that he would be scolded by Zhao Hongba in public because of this. "If I had known, I would have sent a message to senior brother Lu yesterday." Senior brother Lu Bianren couldn't help but blame himself. He didn't expect that Pavilion Master Hu Yunfeng and the others would be so outrageous that they didn't even inform Lu Bianren about such an important thing as the Open Guidance Day. Moreover, he was busy helping Lin Yi and the others yesterday, so he didn't have time to go to the back cliff. However, if he had known in advance that the elder from Blue Cloud Pavilion was Zhao Hongba, he would have reminded Lu Bianren no matter what, because this fourth elder was the enemy of him and the backer of Blue Cloud Pavilion behind Lu Bianren. Once something went wrong, it was conceivable that Zhao Hongba would target Lu Bianren. However, it was a pity that he was just a small steward. How could he know the elder's arrangements in advance? At this time, senior brother Lu Bianren was only thinking that Lu Bianren was tricked, but Lin Yi thought further than him. Lin Yi had already expected that Lu Bianren being tricked was just a prelude, and he would definitely be implicated. Sure enough, Zhao Hongba's next sentence revealed his intentions. "Since you have a good relationship with Lu Bianren, then I'll trouble you to make a trip and call him over, lest the other two pavilions' elders laugh at our Clear Cloud Pavilion's reputation." As expected, Lin Yi couldn't help but sneer in his heart. Although Zhao Hongba's words sounded reasonable, and he didn't mean to make things difficult for Lin Yi, today was a very rare Open Guidance Day. Once he missed it, he might not have the chance to make up for it in this life. Lu Bianren was now at the back cliff 15 kilometers away. Even if there were no delays in between, it would take at least an hour to go back and forth. By the time Lin Yi called Lu Bianren over, it was very likely that all the newcomers would have finished asking questions and answering questions. Seeing that Lin Yi was silent, Zhao Hongba couldn't help but frown slightly. "What's wrong? You're not even willing to go and ask Lu Bianren for help? Are all the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion of this quality now?" Seeing this, Meng Jueguang interrupted at the right time. "Fourth elder, this Lin Yi is a newcomer from the secular world. He has always been arrogant and doesn't know the rules. It's all my fault for not disciplining him well. Fourth elder, please punish him." So he's from the secular world. No wonder. Although Zhao Hongba didn't show it on his face, the dissatisfaction in his words was obvious. The local experts on Heaven Stage Island were basically divided into two factions towards the cultivators from the secular world. One was compatible, and the other was repellent. This fourth elder obviously belonged to the latter, and he was the radical faction, advocating the banning of all the experts from the secular world. And this was the key reason why he opposed Lu Bianren's backer. Chapter 36-35. Yes, I will listen to Fourth Elder's instructions. Meng Jueguang was overjoyed and hurriedly responded. He had tried so hard to exchange the little spirit jade with Lin Yi in order to gain Zhao Yu's favor, and Zhao Yu was elder Zhao Hongba's grandson. Now it seemed that his efforts were not in vain. To be able to leave his name in Zhao Hongba's heart, it was enough to save him a few decades of hard work in the future. Happily receiving the praise, Meng Jueguang turned his head and frowned at Lin Yi. Junior brother Lin Yi, what are you still standing here for? Hurry up and go find Pavilion Master Lu. Do you really want to anger Fourth Elder? Lin Yi glanced at him and was about to speak when senior brother Bitter Guy gritted his teeth and rushed to help him out. Fourth Elder, senior brother Meng, it's not that junior brother Lin doesn't want to go find Pavilion Master Lu, but today's public instruction day is a rare opportunity. As a newcomer, he really can't miss it. Please understand, Fourth Elder, why don't you let me go find Pavilion Master Lu? Lin Yi looked at senior brother Bitter Guy gratefully. Standing up to speak for him at this time was a big risk. Zhao Hongba might vent his anger on him. For a low-level steward like senior brother Bitter Guy, this was not a joke. Who are you? Zhao Hongba looked at senior brother Bitter Guy. He had only heard of Meng Jueguang's name from his grandson Zhao Yu. Under normal circumstances, he would not pay attention to a small steward in the welcoming pavilion, let alone know the name of these people. Senior brother Bitter Guy took a deep breath and said, Fourth Elder, this disciple is called Ku Zhongla. I am also the steward in charge of the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion. Ku Zhongla? Finding joy in hardship? Heh, this name is a bit interesting. Zhao Hongba laughed noncommittally. Then he said righteously, since you know that you are the steward, you should understand that your current task is to maintain order among the newcomers. How can you leave without permission and go out to find someone? Let this Lin Yi go. Zhao Hongba thought about it and felt that even if he agreed to Su Lingchong's request, it wouldn't make sense to erase Lin Yi's right to ask questions. It would damage his image as the fourth elder of Blue Cloud Pavilion. So he said, don't worry, I will reserve your right to ask questions. Even if you come back late, I can make an exception and answer 3 questions for you. Zhao Hongba's words sounded as magnanimous as his name suggested. However, the significance of the Open Guidance Day for rookies was not just to answer his 3 questions. More importantly, he could listen to the elders answer other people's questions. Only when there was comparison could one gain experience. This was a very important lesson for rookies. This lesson was even worth 10 years of hard work for him. Once Lin Yi agreed, it meant that he could still ask questions. However, it was impossible to hear the other newcomers' questions and answers. In a sense, such a loss was even greater than the 15 pieces of spiritual jade that Meng Jueguang had lost previously. The bitter senior apprentice originally wanted to insist, but he was stopped by Lin Yi's hand. This was because for Lin Yi, it was no longer necessary. As long as he could reserve the right to ask 3 questions, the rest was not a problem. Thank you for your understanding, Fourth Elder. This disciple will set off now. Lin Yi cupped his hands towards Zhao Hongba and turned to leave. Meng Jueguang, who was at the side, raised his chin proudly at Lin Yi. The ridicule in his eyes was obvious. Even if it was Lin Yi, who was covered in thorns, in front of Zhao Hongba, the fourth elder, he would not be able to resist at all. Relying on the disparity in status and strength, he could easily kill you with just a few words. Moreover, you would not be able to speak at all. After 2 hours, Lu Bianren and Lin Yi finally rushed back to the welcome pavilion. At this time, the 3 elders had already finished teaching the newcomers from the 3 pavilions and were all gathered in the main hall to exchange their training experiences. Lu Bianren and Lin Yi looked at each other, and their hearts suddenly thumped. This scene was obviously deliberately created by someone. Imagine, if it was in Songshan First High, Chu Pengzhan came to inspect the school, and all the school leaders, teachers, and students were present. Then, under the watchful eyes of everyone, the only person who was late arrived. And what was even worse was that this person had already been rejected by the majority of the teachers and students in the school. What kind of feeling would they have at this time? If it was a normal person, their only thought at this time would probably be to quickly find a hole to hide in. But Lu Bianren did not. His expression did not change, and he directly walked towards the three elders in the middle with his head held high. Lin Yi praised Lu Shixiang as he stood on the side. Lu Shixiang looked as weak as his bitter Shixiao. The third master of the welcoming pavilion had been turned into a mere figurehead by someone else, but this person's temperament and courage were far beyond a normal person's. The reason why Lu Bianren looked weak was because he was constantly retreating. When one's own strength was insufficient, choosing to retreat was far more sensible than choosing to resist, and it also required more courage. But in this crucial situation, he could not retreat anymore, because if he retreated now, it would not be a retreat, but a retreat. Lu Bianren knew that if he retreated even a little, what awaited him would be eternal damnation. Not only would he not be able to stay in the Welcome Pavilion, but he would also not be able to stay in the Blue Cloud Pavilion in the future. So, even if he knew that there was a storm in front of him, he could only move forward at this time, with his head held high. Greetings to the three elders. Disciple Lu Bianren came late to welcome you. Please forgive me. Lu Bianren bowed and said. Lu Bianren bowed as he spoke, and he didn't mention the slightest reason, nor did he make any excuses. He was sincerely asking for forgiveness. Smart. Lin Yi could not help but praise in his heart. At this time, if Lu Bianren talked about the reason why he was late, he would be at a disadvantage. Not to mention that Hu Yunfeng and the others would definitely push the blame away. These three high and mighty elders would not be interested in the reason why Lu Bianren was late. In their eyes, being absent on such an important day was Lu Bianren's fault. If he still wanted to find excuses, then he would be even more wrong and even more guilty. But now, Lu Bianren did not say anything, but directly admitted his mistake and asked for forgiveness. In this way, even if the three elders were dissatisfied, they could not say anything. After all, he was only late once. If they were to hold on to this small matter and not let it go, then it would seem that they were too calculative and that they were not magnanimous enough. Su Yuanzheng, who was in the middle, glanced at Zhao Hongba and did not say anything. After all, Lu Bianren was a member of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. It was better to let Zhao Hongba, the internal elder, deal with him. It could also be considered as giving him face. Chapter 36-36. However, it did not mean that the matter was over just like that. He was going to settle the score later. Lu Bianren smiled bitterly and retreated to the side. If Zhao Hongba had reprimanded him severely, nothing would have happened afterward. After all, scolding his own child in front of outsiders was actually shielding him. But now, this fourth elder did not say anything, only saying that they would talk about it in the future. Then, when he returned to the Clear Cloud Pavilion, maybe he would have to teach Huang Xiaolong a lesson. Maybe not long after, he wouldn't even be able to hold the title of Welcoming Pavilion's third Pavilion Lord. Not only was Lu Bianren aware of this, but Pavilion Master Hu Yunfeng and Deputy Pavilion Master Feng Song also revealed a smug smile. This was a trap they had set up together, and this was the effect they wanted. After this episode, the Public Guidance Day had come to an end. Everyone thought that they could disperse, but unexpectedly, Lin Yi stood up and walked in front of the three elders. Elder Zhao, I haven't asked my 3 questions. Does the elder's previous promise still count? Everyone was stunned, and then all eyes fell on Lin Yi. Everyone's eyes were full of playfulness and curiosity. Although this Lin Yi was the most useless new disciple in Clear Cloud Pavilion, because of all the things that had happened before, especially the conflict between him and Su Lingchong, young Master Su, Lin Yi's reputation among the new disciples was extremely high. Even Kang Xiaoming, who was Su Lingchong's direct follower, could not compare to him. Moreover, it was said that this person was not weak. He could defeat a heaven stage great perfection expert in one move. This kind of strength was not inferior to those old men in the mysterious pavilion. If he were to ask questions, there should be a lot of reference value. Zhao Hongba glanced at Lin Yi. He naturally would not deny this kind of thing. He nodded and said, "Of course it counts. You can ask now." Linny looked around. Under normal circumstances, the rookies of the three pavilions would ask questions separately. But now, all the rookies of the three pavilions were present, and even the big shots like Su Yuanzheng were present. Facing such a big scene, the timid ordinary people would probably tremble in fear and not be able to speak fluently. However, Lin Yi didn't take it seriously at all. He immediately asked, "Disciple is a newcomer from the secular world. Dare I ask, Elder, after we go to the Heaven Stage Island, can the unconscious inheritors be treated? How do we treat them?" Lin Yi had asked Senior Brother Ku Bai about this before, but Senior Brother Ku Bai was just a low-level steward after all. At his level, he would at most know a little about this kind of thing. Moreover, he could not explain how to save the inheritor, so he could only rely on Lin Yi's own speculation. However, what Senior Brother Bitter didn't know, these high and mighty elders definitely knew. Strength and status determined that they could grasp information that ordinary people could never touch. So, taking advantage of this great opportunity, Lin Yi naturally wanted to get to the bottom of it. And this was also the reason why he had reserved the right to ask questions. Zhao Hongba couldn't help but be slightly stunned when he heard this, and he had a slightly surprised expression. Because to 99% of the newcomers, such an opportunity that could only be chanced upon by luck would surely ask some questions that were of utmost importance in the process of cultivation, and they would absolutely not ask about miscellaneous matters. In the eyes of ordinary people, this was simply a waste of resources. However, the Public Instruction Day had never stipulated that questions related to cultivation had to be asked. And because of Su Lingchong's greeting, Zhao Hongba was more than happy to let Lin Yi waste the opportunity himself. After all, this was in front of everyone's watchful eyes. Even if he wanted to target Lin Yi, he couldn't just speak irresponsibly. Otherwise, it would be a fatal blow to others. The reason why those inheritors fainted was because their spiritual sense was damaged during the teleportation process, and they became mindless vegetables. As for how to treat them, as far as I know, only one person has done such a thing before, and that was Miracle Dr. Dan St. Zhongliju. Many years ago, he had treated his wife, Master Bing and Master Shui, Zhao Hongba replied. Although he was part of the radical faction that strongly advocated the banning of the common world practitioners, he, like everyone else, respected a legendary figure like Zhang Liju. However, this didn't stop him from persevering. After all, Zhang Liju was an extremely rare case. Most of the practitioners that came from the common world were weak, and their personalities were evil. They only knew how to waste resources without contributing anything. To Sky-class Island, they were pests with no benefits at all, and as far as he was concerned, they should be banned. As expected, he had to go find Zhang Liju. Zhao Hongba's answer confirmed Lin Yi's speculation, and he couldn't help but sigh in relief. No matter what, since there was a successful treatment, there was hope. Then how can I, your disciple, meet Master Zhang Liju? Lin Yi continued to ask. I heard that Master Zhang Liju lives in Middle Island, and as long as you become an inner disciple of one of the three pavilions, you will have the chance to go to Middle Island to do missions. However, a master like Master Zhang Liju has always been elusive, and even if you go to Middle Island, the chance of meeting him is almost zero. But other than that, there is another chance, and that is to enter the five-element sect created by Master Zhang Liju during the Middle Island tournament. That might increase the chance of meeting him. Zhao Hongba explained in detail, and seeing that Lin Yi was about to ask more, he cut him off with a smile that wasn't a smile. All right, this is already the third question. Is that enough? That was it? The newbies who were watching from the sidelines immediately went into an uproar. They were hoping to hear something useful, but in the end, Lin Yi didn't even ask a single question related to training. The three questions were all gossip, and it didn't benefit them at all. This time, even Lin Yi himself was a little stunned. After all, this was the guidance day, and in order to better help the newbies, the elders would usually try their best to answer the newbies' questions. They would even break the rules and ask a few more questions, and this Zhao Hongba, on the other hand, broke the same question into three. It was rare to see the fourth elder of Blue Cloud Pavilion being stingy like this. This guy is an idiot. This is such a great opportunity, And he actually asked such a stupid question. He's really hopeless. Su Lingqiong, Meng Jueguang, and the others couldn't help but laugh out loud. They had been trying to think of ways to stop Zhao Hongba from answering Lin Yi's questions, and in the end, Zhao Hongba still answered them because he cared about his image. They didn't expect that Lin Yi would ask such a stupid question, and they wasted the opportunity. Chapter 36-37. Kong Ming took the opportunity to mock him. This Lin Yi was an infatuated person when he was in the secular world, always with those inheritors. I didn't think that he would still be thinking about them after coming to Heavenly Island. What a hero's grave, wasting such a good opportunity. Tiske. Even I feel that it's a pity. Wah. Zhong Pingliang also laughed, but he wasn't laughing at Lin Yi, but at Kong Ming and the others. He was clearly an idiot, but he was laughing at Boss Lin Yi, killing his way up from the bottom of the secular world. Boss Lin Yi's training talent was absolutely unprecedented. Did he even need to ask others about this? Was he joking? He'd been tricked by Zhao Hongba, but at least he'd gotten the information he needed. He'd achieved his goal, but he still put on a dejected look on his face. That's 3 questions already? I thought this was the first one. Heh, you can't even tell 1 from 3. I think you're the 2 in the middle. Kong Ming saw this and was even more pleased. It was simply satisfying to see his nemesis, Lin Yi, suffer. The others around him laughed, pointing at Lin Yi and mocking him unscrupulously. Seeing this, Su Yuanzheng, who was standing in the middle, frowned, but didn't stop the crowd from laughing. Instead, he looked at Lin Yi and said, "This disciple can't do it. He's too stupid." This is a rare opportunity to not ask about training, but ask about useless gossip. It's completely the opposite of the original intention of the guidance day. Since he's so lazy, don't give him so many training resources in the future, give them to the more ambitious disciples. As soon as he said this, everyone looked at Lin Yi with even more schadenfreude. Lu Bianren, Ku Bai, and the others were all worried for Lin Yi. Su Yuanzheng was one of the big shots in the Elders Guild. He was just casually commenting here. Those were words of gold and jade, and they were no different from imperial edicts. In this way, Lin Yi's days in the Welcome Pavilion would be even more difficult. As expected, Hu Yunfeng hurriedly nodded and echoed, "Third Elder, you're right. I also think that some newcomers don't want to make progress. We should give this part of the cultivation resources to others, so that we can better motivate the newcomers and make contributions to our North Island sections." That's a good idea. Su Yuanjing nodded with approval. Meng Jueguang, who was in the crowd, was elated to hear this. In that case, it would be even more justifiable for him to mess with Lin Yi in the future. This was doing things according to Elder Su Yuanjing's intentions. Who dared to say half a word of disagreement? As for Lin Yi, although he didn't care about the cultivation resources allocated by the Welcome Pavilion because he had the space of the Jade Pendant, he still had to pretend to be pitiful and helpless at the moment. After all, even the most arrogant newcomer would inevitably feel desperate in front of Su Yuanjing's words. If Lin Yi still remained unmoved, it would be easy to be suspected. And the more pitiful Lin Yi was, the more complacent he was. Su Lingqiong and the others were naturally more complacent. With Su Yuanjing's last fatal comment to end, all the plans today could be said to be a perfect success. From then on, the entire Welcome Pavilion would be Lin Yi's enemy. This idiot was waiting to suffer a lot. After the incident with Lin Yi, the public guidance day finally officially ended. Hu Yunfeng and the others respectfully saw the 3 elders off, and the other newcomers left, talking and laughing. And this topic naturally could not be separated from Lin Yi, the unlucky guy who became the focus at the end. Junior brother Lin, Yu Sai, Lu Bianren, senior brother Ku Bai, Xiao Ran, and Xiao Honkai surrounded Lin Yi. All of them looked worried and wanted to say something but stopped. Even if they felt injustice for Lin Yi, things had already come to this. Even if they wanted to help Lin Yi, there was nothing they could do. After all, the other party was a big shot in the Elders Guild. Small fries like them could be easily crushed with just a word from the other party. They had no power to resist at all. Seeing that the others had pretty much dispersed, Only then did Lin Yi put away the deliberately feigned helpless expression and said with a faint smile, "Actually, everyone doesn't need to worry about me. Even if they target me, it's at most deducting my cultivation resources. People like Pavilion Master Hu Yunfeng and the others can't directly find me for a battle, right? As for this bit of cultivation resources, I naturally have ways to make up for it through other channels. So there's nothing to worry about." Everyone exchanged glances. Seeing that Lin Yi himself, the person involved, looked as if nothing had happened. If the people around him were still so solemn, it would be a little like the eunuchs being anxious when the emperor was not anxious. Hoo-hoo, junior brother Lin is indeed a broad-minded person. Admirable. In comparison, although I, senior brother, think that my mental state is pretty good, compared to junior brother Lin, I'm still inferior. Really ashamed, Lu Bianren said with a smile. Only then did everyone react. Currently, the one in an awkward situation was not just Lin Yi. To a certain extent, Lu Bianren's current situation was even more precarious than Lin Yi's. After all, no matter how difficult Lin Yi's situation was, at least he still had the opportunity to deal with it when it came. But Lu Bianren might not even have this opportunity. Senior brother Lu, you should be fine, right? After all, Elder Zhao didn't say anything just now, right? The bitter senior brother could not help but say with hope. Although Lu Bianren had long been made a mere figurehead by Hu Yunfeng and the rest, no matter what, he was still a third pavilion master and a pillar of support for them. Even if he did not have any power in his hands and might not be able to help many times, at least he could always provide some experience and insights, pointing out the right path for the few people. Lu Bianren shook his head helplessly and said, if it were other elders, perhaps there might still be a little bit of luck. But the other party is Elder Zhao. With his relationship with that backer of ours, do you think that he will let me off? If that backer of ours is still in Blue Cloud Pavilion, there might be a little possibility of protecting me. Unfortunately, he has long gone to the outer islands to carry out a mission, and there's no news at all. That backer? Lin Yi's heart moved when he heard that. It was not strange for people like Lu Bianren and the bitter senior brother to have a backer in Blue Cloud Pavilion. But listening to the meaning of Lu Bianren's words, could it be that their backer could actually contend with Zhao Hongba, the fourth elder of Blue Cloud Pavilion? Chapter 36-38. Senior brother Ku let out a long sigh. The source of their current embarrassing situation wasn't that they didn't have a backer, but that their backer had left, and there was no news of him after he left. Seeing him so depressed, Lu Bianren comforted him with a smile. Actually, it's not a big deal. Even if Elder Zhao wants to target me, he will at most remove me from the position of third pavilion master of Welcome Pavilion, which only exists in name. After all, our elder is only temporarily carrying out a mission. It's not like he'll never come back, so he won't dare to go too far. Moreover, for me now, a change of environment may be a completely different world, which may not necessarily be a bad thing. Since even Lu Bianren himself said so, senior brother Ku and Lin Yi naturally couldn't say anything more, so they could only nod. Lu Bianren paused and said, actually, if I'm transferred away, I'm not worried about junior brother Lin. Although it's the first time I've met junior brother Xiao and junior brother Qiao, I can see that they are steady people, so I'm not worried. The only person I'm worried about is you, junior brother Ku. Me? Worried about what? Senior brother Ku was surprised. In terms of ability and temperament, although he admitted that he couldn't compare to Lin Yi, compared to Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, there shouldn't be much difference, right? After all, he was a steward senior brother in the early stage of foundation establishment. Lu Bianren shook his head, saying in a serious tone, if I'm transferred away, and another person is transferred from our Clear Cloud Pavilion to be the third pavilion lord, that's not a big deal. But what if Meng Jueguang's side wants to fight for this position? What will you do? This. Senior brother Ku suddenly didn't know what to say. Meng Jueguang was now only a steward senior brother, but he had already targeted them in all kinds of ways, both in the open and in the dark. Especially Lin Yi, who was targeted the most, if he sat in the position of third pavilion master. Wouldn't that be even worse? Would he still be alive then? Junior brother Ku, you are gentle and generous. This is what I admire the most about you. But sometimes, this is also your biggest weakness. Lu Bianren said sternly, if things really come to that, even if it's for the sake of the few junior brothers here, you have to stand up and fight with Meng Jueguang, even if you lose in the end. You can't let him look down on you. At the very least, you can't let him do whatever he wants. If it weren't for Lu Bianren's words, Senior Brother Bitter would have definitely retreated when faced with that kind of situation. But now, he at least understood one thing. Once he retreated, he would definitely die. Even Lin Yi and the others behind him would be consigned to eternal damnation. I know, Senior Brother Lu, don't worry. I will take care of a few of my junior brother. Senior Brother Bitter nodded heavily. All right. Lu Bianren patted Senior Brother Bitter's shoulder, then turned to Lin Yi and said, Junior Brother Lin, although your situation is awkward now, I'm not worried. But I'm not worried. When Grandmaster Zhang Liju first came to Heaven Class Island, he was also surrounded by enemies and was in a difficult situation. But these enemies eventually became the Miracle Dr. Dan's name. So, I look forward to your performance. Then please wait and see, Senior Brother Lu. Lin Yi smiled slightly. He was full of confidence and calmness. After that, Lu Bianren uncharacteristically chattered a lot with them. He already had a premonition that his days in the welcoming pavilion were numbered. If he could give some advice at this time, for Lin Yi and the others, perhaps they would have more confidence when facing people like Meng Jueguang in the future. This was the only thing he could do now. After saying goodbye to Lu Bianren and Senior Brother Bitter, Lin Yi and the others returned to the cave together. After informing Lin Yi, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai couldn't wait to return to their own cave to train. The two of them had just won 15 pieces of spiritual jade from Meng Jueguang yesterday, and today they listened to Zhao Hongba's advice. At this time, their enthusiasm for training was very high. If they took advantage of this momentum and worked hard for a few months, they might be able to successfully build their foundation. To be honest, although Zhao Hongba was a little lacking in magnanimity, he was the fourth elder of Blue Cloud Pavilion after all. Whether it was strength or knowledge, he was the best of all the practitioners in the North Island. Listening to his lecture was really better than studying for 10 years. Senior Brother Bitter and Xiao Ran both felt sorry for Lin Yi for missing the opportunity to listen to other people's questions and answers. So on the way back, these people talked one after another and almost repeated all the advice Zhao Hongba gave to the newcomers of Blue Cloud Pavilion. After listening to them, Lin Yi learned something, but he didn't feel enlightened. After all, these newcomers were below the peak of heaven stage, and most of the questions they asked were related to how to break through to the foundation realm. But Lin Yi was already a master in the early stage of the foundation realm, so these instructions were not of great practical use to him. They could only absorb some experience from the ideas and use it as a reference for future training. After watching Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai leave, Lin Yi turned around and was about to enter his cave, but suddenly he was stopped by someone. He turned around and saw that it was Li Zhengming. Why is this guy looking for me? Lin Yi was secretly surprised. In his opinion, Li Zhengming was quite a strange person. Putting aside the fact that he deliberately hid his strength, he was the first person besides Meng Tong to take the initiative to join Meng Jueguang. Logically speaking, he should be a lackey. However, from his previous performance, not only was he not a lackey, but he was also very low-key. Most of the time, people didn't even remember that there was such a guy, which was very puzzling. Brother Lin Yi, I have something to talk to you about. Is it convenient? Li Zhengming's expression was uncertain, and he seemed to be in a dilemma. What is it? Lin Yi stopped and thought about it carefully. Li Zhengming didn't offend him much. Even when he occupied his mine in the 7th mine, it must have been under the orders of Meng Jueguang. Moreover, in the end, it turned out that he did Lin Yi a big favor, so there was nothing to hate. Li Zhengming hesitated for a moment and said, "Can we talk in your cave?" "Sure." Lin Yi readily agreed. The cave was actually a very secret private space for cultivators. The things stored in it might expose some unspeakable secrets. However, all of Lin Yi's things were piled up in the space of the jade pendant, so he naturally didn't have to worry about this. After the two entered the cave, Li Zhengming said, "I actually have a presumptuous request this time. I hope to exchange a few pieces of spiritual jades with you." Exchange for spiritual jades? Lin Yi was slightly stunned. He looked very surprised on the surface, but in his heart, he was secretly happy. Chapter 36-39. There was no need to think too much about this. Other than Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong, who else would come looking for him to exchange for spiritual jades for no reason? Of course, for Lin Yi, the more traps there were, the better. He could not wait for Meng Jueguang and his gang to brazenly cheat him. It would be best if each of them cheated him of 100 pieces. That way, he would not have to worry about how to earn spiritual jades. Lin Yi's guess was right. The mastermind behind this incident was Meng Jueguang. And the source of this incident was a few days ago, when Meng Tong was bragging to the other newcomers. He accidentally revealed that Lin Yi had been cheated out of good jades by them using useless jades. As a result, Lin Yi became the laughingstock of the crowd. It also made the newcomers unknowingly target him. Just by casually using a few worthless pieces of useless jades, they could exchange for a good piece of spiritual jades. With such a living bodhisattva by their side, they should hurry up and pay him a visit to get some benefits. Wouldn't they be condemned by the heavens and the earth? Originally, the newcomers only had one piece of the spirit jade that the welcoming pavilion had given them, and Lin Yi's had been scammed away by Meng Jueguang a long time ago. He didn't have anything else to talk about, and so even if the newcomers had the idea, they could only keep it to themselves. But it was different now. Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai had just won 15 pieces of spiritual jades from Meng Jueguang yesterday. According to normal logic, the spiritual jades of the two underlings would naturally fall into the hands of the boss, Lin Yi. So overnight, the hearts of the newcomers in the Blue Cloud Pavilion began to stir. Everyone was thinking of using their useless jades to exchange for the good jades in Lin Yi's hands. But Lin Yi wasn't an idiot, after all. If he couldn't think of a good reason, then he wouldn't be able to. No matter how anxious these rookies were, they did not know what to do in a short period of time. Although it could be said that Lin Yi's brain was not very good, and he had been tricked by Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong with the useless jade, he was still a ruthless person who could defeat Meng Tong in one move. These rookies had to admit that they could not afford to offend this demon. If he didn't think it through beforehand and rashly lied to him, it would be hard to say what the consequences would be if he found out. He might even be beaten half to death by him. However, there was clearly a piece of fresh meat placed in front of them, but they could not eat it. The feelings of the rookies were like 100 claws scratching at their hearts. Finally, they could not hold it in any longer. Finally, someone asked Meng Jueguang for help. If there was a first, there would be a second. Things always changed in the end. As a result, all the other rookies in Blue Cloud Pavilion ran to Meng Jueguang to express their loyalty. And this scene happened at the end of today's tutoring day, when Lu Bianren was giving instructions to Lin Yi and the others. With regards to this, Meng Jueguang was naturally overjoyed. He had been looking forward to this scene for a long time. Faced with the rookies' request for help, he naturally could not disappoint them. Not only did he provide everyone with a few pieces of useless jade, he even gave them a very detailed reason. Naturally, Li Jingming, who was the first person other than Meng Tong to rely on him, became the best candidate to test the feasibility of this plan. Hence, there was the scene of Li Jingming coming to him. How do you exchange for spirit jades? Aren't spirit jades the same? What's there to exchange for? Lin Yi pretended to be surprised. Although he did not know the details behind the scenes, he had more or less guessed it. Now was the time when he was in urgent need of spirit jades. Since the other party had taken the initiative to deliver spirit jades to him, there was no reason for him to reject them. However, he still had to cooperate with them, or else he would be suspected. Li Jingming pondered for a moment and asked, "The 15 pieces of spirit jades that Senior Meng lost to you yesterday, are they in your hands? Is there a problem with that?" Lin Yi did not answer directly, but asked in a non-committal manner. Li Jingming thought that Lin Yi had tacitly agreed, so he organized his words and said, "It's like this. The bag of spirit jades that Senior Meng gave you was temporarily stored in his public funds. In a moment of desperation, he did not notice and mixed it up. Originally, it was not impossible for him to use his personal spirit jades to exchange for it. But Brother Lin Yi, you also know that there are different grades of good spirit jades. The problem is that this batch of public funds is of high quality. Senior Ming would not be able to find so much good spirit jades in such a short time. At this point, Li Zhengming looked at Lin Yi. Seeing that he was not moved, he continued. Once the accounts are audited and the quality is found to be different, Senior Ming will inevitably be punished. As a new disciple, I can't just stand by and watch. So, this set of words was naturally thought up by Meng Jueguang himself. At first glance, it sounded reasonable, and no one could find any obvious loopholes. Moreover, this good spirit jades was real, but this good spirit jades belonged to Meng Jueguang. So you want me to exchange these spirit jades for Meng Shixiang's favor? Lin Yi cooperated and continued the conversation. Li Zhengming nodded repeatedly. That's right. So I don't know if brother Lin Yi is willing to part with it? Lin Yi could not help but laugh. He deliberately put on a gloating expression and said, although I can understand what you are saying, from the beginning to the end, it is Senior Ming's own business. He made a mistake, so naturally he will be punished. What does it have to do with me? Moreover, you yourself said that this is good spirit jades. Why would I exchange it with you for ordinary spirit jades? Do you think I am an idiot? Brother Lin Yi, you have misunderstood. I also know that this is a little difficult for you, so I will not let you suffer a loss. I will use 2 good spirit jades to exchange for one of your good spirit jades. How about that? Li Zhengming already knew that Lin Yi would not easily agree, so he offered a tempting price. About this, Lin Yi purposely pretended to be interested, but still shook his head. Your 2 good spirit jades and my 1 good spirit jades. Although the value of the 2 is about the same, to me there is still not much benefit. Don't forget that Senior Ming has targeted me many times before. Since there is no obvious benefit, why should I help him? Why don't you give me a reason? Hearing this, Li Zhengming hesitated for a moment, then gritted his teeth and said, all right then, 3 spirit jades for 1. Brother Lin, you should be satisfied now. Let's say that your spirit jades are worth the same as 2 good spirit jades. 3 spirit jades for 1. You have definitely made a profit. Hee. This guy is also a master of acting. Lin Yi could not help but laugh in his heart. After thinking for a moment, he finally nodded and said, all right then, deal. Chapter 3640. However, this time was different from the last time. Last time, Meng Jueguang's excuse was to exchange small spiritual jades for jade carvings. Therefore, Lin Yi could raise the price unscrupulously under the guise of a rare commodity. Moreover, the other party was willing to cooperate in order to cheat him. One was willing to take the hit, and the other was willing to take the hit. There was nothing much to say. However, this time, the transaction with Li Zhengming did not have such an excuse. It was a completely normal exchange of spiritual jades. After all, from a normal person's point of view, exchanging 1 high-grade jade for 3 normal jades was not a loss for Lin Yi. If he asked for more, people would suspect that Lin Yi had already discovered that these were useless jades. As for discovering that these ordinary good jades were useless after the transaction, that was another matter altogether. Taking a step back, for a newcomer like Li Zhengming, it was not realistic to ask for dozens of jades for 1 jade. Even if Lin Yi knew that he was asking for less, he could only accept it this time. Give these people a little benefit first, then more people would send jade to your door. Only by casting a long line could you catch a big fish. After all, for Lin Yi, as long as he had the space of the jade pendant, any useless jades would become good jades in his hands. 25 for 1 was fine, 3 for 1 was fine too. It was a profit without any loss. After this transaction, Lin Yi could already foresee that in the future, that idiot halo on him would become stronger and stronger. When this recognition was deeply rooted in people's hearts, people would definitely come to him to exchange spiritual jades and take advantage of him. What they didn't know was that under the cover of this idiot aura, Lin Yi was happily making a fortune. Seeing Li Zhengming take out 6 spiritual jades, Lin Yi was slightly stunned. You want to exchange for 2? That's right. You can check carefully. Li Zhengming said with a deep meaning. These words made Lin Yi feel a little strange. If he didn't want to play along, he wouldn't be able to. Li Zhengming's words revealed 2 very obvious flaws. Firstly, as a newcomer, In a situation where everyone else only had one piece of spiritual jade, he suddenly took out 6 pieces. Wasn't he afraid of arousing Lin Yi's suspicions? Secondly, if it were someone else in Li Zhengming's position, seeing that Lin Yi had agreed to the deal, they would have accepted the spiritual jades and left immediately. Why would he specifically remind Lin Yi to check carefully? Was he not afraid that Lin Yi would really do it in front of him, and then find out that these were all waste jade? He obviously didn't look like such a stupid person, but he still revealed such an obvious flaw. This guy was really a strange person. Lin Yi felt strange, but he didn't care. After all, what he wanted was waste jade. If he really had to check according to the other party's words, then this show couldn't go on. He immediately exchanged the spiritual jades in his hand, with a look of surprise as if he had gained a big bargain, for fear that Li Zhengming would go back on his words. He put away the 6 pieces of waste jade and said, "That's it." Li Zhengming looked at Lin Yi with some surprise, but he didn't say much. After a greeting, he put away the spiritual jades and left. Coming out of Lin Yi's cave house number 14, Li Zhengming didn't directly return to his own cave house, but turned and entered the neighboring cave house number 15. At this time, not only Ming Tong, the owner of the cave house, but even Meng Jueguang was here. It was to know Lin Yi's reaction as soon as possible. Seeing Li Zhengming come in, Meng Tong immediately asked impatiently, "Did you get the spiritual jades?" "Let me see." Li Zhengming looked at Meng Jueguang next to him. Although he didn't speak, the urgency between his eyebrows clearly showed that this was the problem he was most concerned about at this moment. These two people only wanted to collect the spiritual jades, but they didn't care at all whether they were beaten up or not. In an instant, Li Zhengming suddenly felt very cold. In fact, when Meng Jueguang first proposed this idea, the person who originally planned to test Lin Yi was not him, but Meng Tong. But Meng Tong found an excuse to push it away, and put this task on Li Zhengming's head. Although it was said that he gave a good opportunity to take advantage of Lin Yi to Li Zhengming was very clear that Meng Tong was obviously afraid of being beaten up, so he pushed him out as a sacrifice. No heaven stage expert was a real fool. According to Meng Jueguang, Lin Yi had already collected 2 piles of useless jades. If it was any normal person, they would have already reacted. Letting a person like Lin Yi repeatedly step into the same pit 3 times. This kind of thing was too unrealistic no matter how you think about it. Although Meng Jueguang provided a seemingly very reasonable excuse, there was a very important premise. That was, Lin Yi had never found the useless jades that he had collected before. Frankly speaking, Lin Yi must be a complete idiot. But any normal person would know that the success of this test was actually very small. The reason why they still did this test was just a fluke driven by benefits. Once the test failed, the possibility of Lin Yi going crazy was almost 100%. At that time, the person who was sent to test him could be imagined what would happen to him. Being beaten half to death would be considered a good thing, and he might even lose his life there. Moreover, even if he was beaten to death, according to the rules of the Heaven Stage North Island, it would be in vain, because the Heaven Stage North Island prohibited waste jades from being circulated as good jades in the market. You violated the rules first, so you deserve to be beaten to death. Even if Meng Tong, who was not very smart, could think of this kind of thing, how could Li Zhengming not think of it? But Meng Tong pushed him forward, and Meng Jueguang also nodded. No matter how unwilling he was, he could only bite the bullet and do it. There was no other way. After all, he was the younger brother. But even if he was the younger brother, after the test came back, he did not care about his safety at all, and directly reached out to him for the spirit jades. This was not treating him as a human being. Li Zhengming could not help but be in a trance. Was it necessary to continue to rely on this kind of backing? Say something? Did you get the spirit jades or not? What are you doing here like an idiot? Did Lin Yi beat you silly? Meng Jueguang saw that Li Zhengming did not answer, and could not help but frown and scold. Oh, it worked. That Lin Yi guy's an idiot. He didn't even check the jade and let me trade 6 pieces of trash jade for 2 good ones. He's acting like he's the one who got the best deal. What an idiot. Li Zhengming hurriedly replied after he came to his senses. He took out the 2 pieces of spiritual jades and excused himself. I'm just too happy. I'm having too much fun and forgetting about my duties. Chapter 3641. Using 6 pieces of useless jade to exchange for 2 pieces of useless jade from Linny, this was a big joke. However, Meng Juiguang quickly came to a conclusion. The 2 pieces of spiritual jades were abnormally full of spiritual energy. They were indeed top-notch jades. It seems like that guy is the same as what Kang Mingming and Zhong Pingliang said before. He never uses spiritual jades to cultivate. So he still doesn't know that we tricked him with useless jades. Maybe he's still complacent and thinks that he's rich. He's really stupid to the extreme. Meng Juiguang laughed proudly and looked at Li Jingming. You did a good job. I'll reward you with one of these spiritual jades and give the other to Meng Tong. Li Zhengming's heart sank. According to the previous agreement, no matter who took the useless jades to Lin Yi, all the spiritual jades would belong to that person. But now, Meng Juiguang reduced it by half with just one sentence. This bias was too unreasonable. However, people had to lower their heads when they were under someone else's roof. Li Zhengming knew that if he wanted to continue living here, he had to find a good backer. For now, the newcomers of Blue Cloud Pavilion only had 2 choices. One was Meng Juiguang, the other was Lin Yi, or Lu Bianren and the bitter guy. Before, Li Jingming thought that Lin Yi was hiding something, but after the test just now, especially when he deliberately hinted, Lin Yi didn't have any reaction at all. He actually foolishly accepted the pile of useless jades. This really surprised him. He suddenly felt that this guy was not reliable at all. Plus, Lu Bianren was the biggest supporter of Lin Yi's group, and it seemed like he was very powerful. As the 3rd pavilion master, no matter how bad he was, he would still have a place in the welcome pavilion. However, that was not the case. Although this group of people seemed powerful, they were actually not very reliable. In comparison, although Meng Juiguang's performance had disappointed him, at least in the welcome pavilion, in front of the newcomers of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, he could be considered a big tree. Only by leaning against a big tree could one enjoy shade. Only then could he gradually realize the obsession in his heart. Thank you, Senior Brother Meng. Although Li Jingming was unhappy, he still pretended to be flattered. On the other hand, Meng Tong didn't say anything about getting a good piece of jade for free. Instead, he muttered unwillingly, since 9th cousin said so, I'll let you have a piece cheaper. It was originally mine. It's just that I gave you a good opportunity to test the waters, and that's why you've taken advantage of me for no reason. You must be very happy, right? Wahahaha. Li Zhengming couldn't help but roll his eyes speechlessly, hiding when he saw trouble, and taking advantage when he saw an advantage. How could a person be shameless to this extent? Previously, when I asked this guy to test the waters, he hid very quickly. I didn't expect that he would pretend to be a big tail wolf at this time. If it wasn't because he was worried about Meng Juiguang's face. If it wasn't because he wanted to hide his heaven stage great perfection strength, Li Zhengming couldn't wait to teach this bastard a lesson. But now, he could only choose to endure. All right, Meng Tong, don't be so happy. Everyone gets one piece. The same goes for the others. With regards to Li Zhengming's current psychological activity, Meng Juiguang didn't notice at all and didn't care at all. But Meng Tong's stupid behavior made him a little unhappy. He frowned and ordered, You 2 can tell the others about the success of the test tomorrow. Since Lin Yi hasn't realized it until now, he probably won't realize it in the future. Arrange for them to look for Lin Yi 1 by 1 to exchange for spiritual jades. Since they've already joined my sect, I naturally have to give them some benefits. I want to make Lin Yi spit out all the 15 pieces of good jades in his hands. All right, Meng Tong replied in high spirits. Being able to see Lin Yi being cheated over and over again was really satisfying. Li Zhengming echoed from the side. Since Lin Yi was useless and couldn't even see through such an obvious hint, then he should just do what he had to do next. He couldn't make Meng Juiguang suspicious because of such an irrelevant guy. He wouldn't do such a stupid thing. In the next few days, Lin Yi went to the number 10 mine to mine as usual and returned to the cave residence to cultivate at night. But what was different from before was that every time he returned at night, there would always be someone waiting for him at the entrance of the cave residence. They were all newcomers of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Naturally, the purpose of waiting for Lin Yi was the same as Li Jingming, to look for Lin Yi to exchange for spiritual jades. Lin Yi was happy to see this happen. If someone came to him to exchange for spiritual jades, then he would exchange. With Li Jingming as the precedent, the exchange rate was always 3-1. In just a few days, including the 2 pieces he gave to Li Jingming, Lin Yi had exchanged for a total of 15 pieces of spiritual jades, earning a net profit of 30 pieces. But after this, although Lin Yi's idiot halo became more and more famous through word of mouth among the newcomers, so much so that even the newcomers from the other 2 pavilions had heard of it, not a single newcomer came to him to exchange for spiritual jades. It wasn't because they found their conscience, but because everyone knew that Lin Yi didn't have any good jades on hand. If they want to look for him to exchange, even if they came up with an impeccable reason, they would only be able to exchange for a pile of useless jades. Naturally, these smart people wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Lin Yi looked at the additional 30 pieces of spiritual jades in his jade pendant space. He felt gratified, but at the same time, he couldn't help but feel pity. If he wanted those smart people to continue using the same old trick to give him useless jades, then he had to let them know that he had good jades on hand. But this required an open and above-board reason, just like this time when Ming Jueguang lost 15 pieces of good jades. Otherwise, even if Lin Yi took out good jades himself, he wouldn't be able to explain the source. But this kind of opportunity wasn't easy to come by, so he had to wait patiently. After counting, Lin Yi now had more than 80 pieces of spiritual jades on hand. Although it was a lot for ordinary people, for Lin Yi, who wanted to save 1,000 spiritual jades before the Inner Street's opening day next month, it was still a drop in the bucket. Fortunately, Senior Brother Bitter still had 300 to 400 pieces of spiritual jades on hand. In addition, Lin Yi now had at least 400 spiritual jades on hand. This way, he had already made up for a small part of the gap. Moreover, he still had plenty of time. Otherwise, Lin Yi could only take the risk and do something risky. Chapter 3642. Even though Lin Yi still did not know the specifics of this ghostly thing, after all his previous encounters, his intuition told him that this ghostly thing's background was definitely not small. Something that even he was moved by was naturally not a small matter. Moreover, as the saying goes, treasures have spirits. Every heavenly treasure was waiting for its fated person. This was a chance that belonged to everyone. Even though Lin Yi had not been able to find out the true use of the star ink stone from the ghostly thing's mouth, the throbbing of his heart at that time was not fake. He could clearly feel the mysterious connection between himself and this star ink stone. It could be seen that after getting his hands on it, there would definitely be an unexpected surprise waiting for him. However, while Lin Yi was looking forward to the star ink stone, in the cave of an inner disciple of the Soaring Sky Pavilion 100 miles away from him, there was someone who was even more obsessed with that unattractive stone than he was. He could not even rest during the day or sleep at night because of it. If Lin Yi was present, he would definitely be shocked and vigilant. This was because this person was the inner disciple of the Soaring Sky Pavilion he had met at the Hong Merchant Guild. His name was Yuzha. Compared to the other inner disciples of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, although Yuzha could barely be considered a second-generation cultivator, his background was far less profound than that of a young master like Su Lingchong. In the Soaring Sky Pavilion, if one did not have a powerful background, then one must have great strength. Otherwise, one could only be bullied by others and never have a chance to stand out. Therefore, Yuzha had always been very diligent. Apart from his daily training, the place he went to the library the most was the library. As long as he paid a token amount of spirit jade, he could look up tens of thousands of ancient books every month. This was a treatment unique to the inner disciples of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. As for the inner disciples of the other 2 pavilions, if they wanted to enter the library, they would have to pay a price that was not a small amount of spirit jade. The price they had to pay to enter the library was definitely painful. There was no other reason other than that this library was built on the territory of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. There was no other reason than the fact that the library pavilion was built on the territory of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. As an inner sect disciple of the Soaring Sky Pavilion who did not have a strong background, Yuzha knew that if he wanted to stand out, it was not enough to just rely on diligent cultivation. He had to have some kind of unexpected fortuitous encounter and fortuitous encounter opportunity. They were often hidden in these ancient books. In order to be able to more easily access these ancient books, Yuzha, as a high and mighty inner sect disciple of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, even volunteered to become a small steward of the library pavilion. After 3 whole years, he had already memorized all the ancient books in the library like the back of his hand. Other than the library, there was another place that Yuzha frequented. This was the market. There was nothing much to see in the outer and middle streets, but the mysterious and high-end inner streets often had some unexpected treasures, some treasures that many people couldn't understand but had profound meanings. However, the inner street was not a place anyone could enter. Although Yuzha was an inner sect disciple of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, his background was not particularly strong. Secondly, his strength was not particularly strong, and he had never achieved any dazzling results in the competition between the 3 pavilions, so he had never been able to obtain the recognition of the inner street. The only chance he had to enter the inner street was during the monthly Inner Street Open Day. Opportunities always come to those who are prepared. Under Yuzha's unremitting efforts. Finally, a few days ago, during the Inner Street Open House, he finally found what he had been dreaming of. A fortuitous object that was overlooked by everyone, but was enough to allow someone to step onto the peak. That was the star inkstone recorded in the ancient books. Every time he thought of that pitch-black stone, Yuzha couldn't help but feel a wave of excitement. This was a treasure that even the Hong Merchant Company had misjudged. Although the price of 1,000 spirit jades could not be considered low, but if it was according to what was written in the ancient books, its true value was far more than 1,000 spirit jades. It could be 10 times, or even 100 times more. It was a pity that Yuzha did not have 1,000 spirit jades on hand at the time. Although he was an inner sect disciple of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, and his monthly salary was far higher than that of the disciples of the other 2 pavilions, it was not very realistic to rely on this little bit of salary to save up 1,000 spirit jades. Also, he had been a steward of the library pavilion for the past 3 years and did not go out to do those high-reward missions, so he was not as rich as the other inner sect disciples of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. But luckily, Yuzha had already arranged with someone to borrow 1,000 spirit jades before the Inner Street Open House next month. Although the interest rate was extremely high, as long as he successfully bought the star inkstone, the return it would bring would be at least 10 times or even 100 times more. As long as he waited for less than a month, he would be able to purchase the star inkstone recorded in the ancient texts. One could imagine how excited Yuzha was right now. This was a precious treasure that could change his entire life. Yuzha wasn't worried that someone would buy the star inkstone before him, because the rarity of an item like the star inkstone was far above that of other treasures. This could be seen from the fact that even the treasure appraisers of the Hong Chamber of Commerce weren't able to determine its true value. It was only because of the appraiser's intuition that this item was not ordinary, so he symbolically priced it at 1,000 spirit jades. Apart from people like Yuzha who specialized in reading ancient books, no one else would know the use of the star inkstone, much less spend 1,000 spirit jades to buy this strange stone. Thus, Yuzha was determined to obtain it. Suddenly, an unfamiliar figure flashed through Yuzha's mind. It was that grassroots wandering cultivator he had never met who had been standing next to him when he had found the star inkstone. Judging from the situation at the time, he had seemed rather interested in the star inkstone. Could it be that this fellow also knew the value of the star inkstone? As soon as this thought appeared, Yuzha began to laugh self-mockingly. Putting aside the fact that grassroots wandering cultivators had no chance of coming into contact with ancient books, the possibility of them recognizing the star inkstone was minuscule. Even if they recognized it, could it be that they could gather 1,000 spirit jades and buy it before Yuzha did? But self-mockery was self-mockery. Yuzha could not afford to lose this star inkstone. No matter how absurd this thought was, he still had to nip the risk in the bud. Better safe than sorry. He decided to wait the night before the Inner Street Open House next month and buy the star inkstone as soon as possible. This way, Even if that grassroots wandering cultivator also took a fancy to the star inkstone, even if he also gathered 1,000 spirit jades, in the end, he could only look on and sigh. This is an opportunity and good fortune that belongs to me, Yuja. No one can steal it from my hands. With its assistance, I will walk the path to the peak. Chapter 36:43. In fact, he hadn't even thought about how to earn the rest of the spiritual jades. With the news of him being cheated by many newcomers using useless jade to exchange for good jade, the first to come to him was not the other restless newcomers from the other pavilions, but Senior Brother Bitter Guy. Although Linny was a little surprised by Senior Brother Bitter Guy's visit, he was still quite happy. The reason was very simple. Senior Brother Bitter Guy had delivered the 300 to 400 pieces of useless jade that he had mentioned before. It was a full sack. Looking at the sack full of useless jade, Lin-Yi was naturally overjoyed. With a rough estimate, there were at least 350 pieces of useless jade. In addition to the 80 pieces he already had, it meant that he had a total of more than 430 pieces of spiritual jades. Faced with such an outcome, it would be strange if Lin-Yi wasn't overjoyed. Seeing Lin-Yi's joy, Senior Brother Bitter Guy was naturally happy for him too. However, he hesitated for a moment and couldn't help but ask the question in his heart, Junior Brother Lin. There is a rumor that even the other 2 pavilions newcomers have heard. It says that you were exchanged for 15 pieces of good jade with useless jade. What is going on? Senior Brother Bitter Guy already knew that Linny had been exchanged for good jade by Meng Jueguang. He thought that it was just because Linny was careless and was tricked. He didn't expect such a thing to happen in just a few days. Moreover, the rumor sounded so real. This made him a little puzzled. Even if Linny was really as stupid as the rumor said, the problem was, where did he get these 15 pieces of good jade? Others thought that these good jades were the 15 pieces that Meng Jueguang lost in the bet, but Senior Brother Bitter knew. However, Senior Brother Bitter Guy knew that these good jade were all in the hands of Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai. Linny didn't want any of them, and if the piece of spiritual jade that Meng Jueguang cheated was counted, as a newcomer, Linny shouldn't have a single good jade in his hands right now. But the rumor sounded plausible and didn't seem to be fake. If it was purely a rumor, this kind of thing might happen among the common people. But these were all heaven-rank experts. It was impossible for them to not have the basic ability to distinguish between the truth and the truth. This is actually a little secret of mine. Senior Marshal Brother Ku, after you hear it, you'll understand. You have to keep it a secret for me. Linny knew that Senior Brother Ku Bai would ask such a question, so he had already thought of an excuse. Of course, he would not mention the space of the jade pendant. Junior Brother Lin, don't worry. I will definitely keep it a secret. But if it's inconvenient, you don't have to tell me. Senior Brother Ku Bai said considerately. He was only concerned about Lin Yi's situation, but he didn't necessarily want to know Lin Yi's secrets. Linny smiled and shook his head. Actually, it's nothing. Senior Brother Ku, you already know that I'm an alchemist. I recently found out that if I use these waste jades as supplementary materials, it can increase the success rate of alchemy. So I secretly refined some alchemy pills and sold them in the market square. That's how I got the good jades that they exchanged for. I see. Senior Brother Ku Bai finally understood. But then he asked, but Junior Brother Lin, since you used pills to exchange for these good jade, why didn't you keep them for yourself? Could it be that it's more profitable to use them as supplementary materials for alchemy? That's true, so I was happy to pretend to be the idiot that they said I was. I secretly made a fortune. Linny laughed. This time, even the bitter senior brother was amused. I was wondering, with Junior Brother Lin's intelligence, how could you suffer such a huge loss? So that's how it is. To think that I was so worried before. Senior Apprentice Brother Ku Bai's words were not false. Before he came here, he was really worried about Linny. Linny felt somewhat touched. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. He turned around to avoid the other party's line of sight. He took out 30 pieces of spirit jades, put them in a bag, and handed it to Senior Apprentice Brother Ku Bai. Senior Brother Ku Bai was stunned and waved his hand repeatedly. Junior brother Lin, what do you mean? Don't tell me you think that I'm the same as the others, and that I'm here to exchange waste jade for good jade? Seeing that senior brother Kubai was really a little angry, Linny hurriedly explained, Senior brother Kubai, you're thinking too much. If we really followed the 3-to-1 exchange rate of others, my 30 pieces of good jade wouldn't be enough to exchange for so many useless jades. I'm just making you worry about me, senior brother Kubai. I feel bad, so I'm just trying to express my gratitude. But junior brother Lin needs these good jades more than I do. Although senior brother Kubai was a little moved, he still insisted on not accepting it. Speaking of which, he had been a senior brother in charge for a few years, but he had never seen so many good jades at once. 30 pieces of good jades were enough to sustain his cultivation for a long time. About the matter of the spirit jades, senior brother Kubai, you don't have to worry about me. Don't forget that I can still earn them back by refining medicinal pills. Especially since you've provided me with so many useless jades, it's enough for me to refine a lot of medicinal pills. So, you should just accept these spirit jades. Between us brothers, is there really a need to be so serious? That would disappoint junior brother too much. Linny smiled and persuaded, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai have already accepted them. Senior brother Kubai, if you don't accept them, are you not treating me as one of your own? Since Lin Yi had put it this way, the bitter senior martial brother could no longer refuse. He could only say with an ashamed expression, then, all right, I will shamelessly take advantage of junior martial brother Lin this time. I will remember this favor in my heart. If it was before, he might have insisted on not accepting it. But now that he had been entrusted by Lu Bianren, in order to be able to fight against Meng Jueguang in the future, he urgently needed to increase his strength. Naturally, the more spiritual jades, the better. Senior brother Ku, you're being too serious. Isn't helping you the same as helping myself? Lin Yi waved his hand dismissively. In reality, if it wasn't for the fact that he needed to save up spiritual jades to buy star inkstones, he could have given more. But now that he had given 30 pieces, he was left with less than 500 pieces. If he gave more, it might not be enough when the time came. The bitter senior martial brother nodded gratefully and carefully put away the 30 pieces of spiritual jades. After thinking for a moment, he reminded Lin Yi, junior martial brother Lin. An innocent man gets into trouble because of his wealth. I'm sure you've heard this saying before. Although others know that you can refine medicinal pills, and it doesn't matter if it gets out, if your success rate in refining medicinal pills is very high, it will eventually attract trouble. So in the future, it's better to be more careful. Senior martial brother Ku, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Lin Yi replied. Chapter 36-44. Foundation Establishment Barrier Breaking Pill? Lin Yi was slightly stunned. It was the first time he had heard of this kind of pill. However, from the name, he knew that this pill would definitely help a master in the Foundation Establishment stage break through. He immediately said, I've never seen this before, but if senior brother Ku has the recipe, I can try it. I have the recipe here. Senior brother Ku immediately took out a recipe and handed it to Lin Yi. Lin Yi took the recipe and looked at it carefully. He found that this Foundation Establishment Barrier Breaking Pill was also a 4th-grade pill like the Heavenly Golden Pill. Its effect was exactly as he had speculated. It had the same effect as the Heavenly Golden Pill. However, although they were both useful for masters in the Foundation Establishment stage, there was still a difference between the two. The Foundation Establishment Barrier Breaking Pill could be used to help masters in the Foundation Establishment stage break through the barrier between the early stage and the peak of the early stage of the Foundation Establishment stage, and the barrier between the peak of the early stage and the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment stage. However, there was a prerequisite for this pill to take effect. That was, the user must have touched the cultivation barrier. If this condition was not met, the pill would have no effect no matter how many times it was taken. Moreover, taking the Foundation Establishment Barrier Breaking Pill was not 100% sure that the user could break through the barrier. It would be better if the user was in the early stage, or the peak of the early stage of the Foundation Establishment stage. However, If the user was in the late stage or the peak of the late stage of the foundation establishment stage, it would depend on the quality of the pill. If the quality was not good and the user's aptitude was not good, it would not be easy to break through. In comparison, the Heavenly Path Golden Pill, also known as the Foundation Building Pill, could also be used to break through barriers. Furthermore, it could be used when one had yet to reach a cultivation barrier. It could also be taken as an experience pill, which was far more valuable than the Foundation Establishment Barrier Breaking Pill. Let me give you a simple example. Although Linny had been in the early stage of the Foundation Establishment stage for some time, it was not a long time, and he had not touched the barrier of the early stage of the Foundation Establishment stage. If he took the Foundation Establishment Barrier Breaking Pill at this time, it could be said that it would have no effect. However, if he took the Foundation Establishment Pill, one would be used to touch the barrier, and the other would be used to break through the barrier. Then he could directly advance to the peak of the early stage of the Foundation Establishment stage. Therefore, although they were both fourth-grade pills, there was still a difference in quality between the two types of pills. However, it seemed to be a bit extravagant. The raw materials of the Foundation Breaking Pill were not as complicated as the Foundation Breaking Pill. He could use them together to achieve the best effect. It seemed that Senior Marshall Brother Ku Bai's Foundation Breaking Pill had come at the right time, and since it was a fourth-grade medicinal pill, in that case, Han Jingjing's modified godly pesticide cauldron could be used to refine it. It was enough to guarantee the success rate of refining. Thinking of this, Linny nodded and said, "Senior Brother Ku, I have the confidence to try this foundation-breaking pill, but I need some time to gather the ingredients. Although the herbs required for this pill formula are not as complicated as the foundation-building pill, but no matter what, it was still a fourth-grade medicinal pill, and it would still take some time to gather all the medicinal ingredients." Senior Marshall Brother Ku Bai's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he hurriedly said, "I have medicinal herbs here, and I have prepared 3 sets, but they are all stored in my cave. Junior Brother Lin, if you can refine it, I'll go back and get it for you." As he spoke, Senior Marshall Brother Ku Bai did not wait for Lin Yi to agree and turned to leave the cave. He could not wait to go back and get the medicinal ingredients. Lin Yi suddenly did not know whether to laugh or cry. He had known Senior Marshall Brother Ku Bai for so long, and he had always given him the impression that he was a gentle person who could not be beaten with a stick. He had never seen him so anxious. In fact, it was no wonder that Senior Marshall Brother Ku Bai was so excited. He had already been an expert in the early stage of the foundation building realm many years ago, and now he had been stuck in the barrier between the early stage and the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm for more than half a year. No matter how hard he cultivated, there had never been a sign of loosening. According to his original character, he would not be as anxious as he was now. He could continue to cultivate slowly and look for an opportunity to break through. But now, Lu Bianren was in a precarious situation. Once he was transferred from the Welcome Pavilion, even if it was for the sake of Lin Yi and the other junior martial brothers who were loyal to him, he had to stand up as a senior martial brother. And with the strength of the early stage of the foundation building realm, he obviously could not compete with Meng Jueguang. And if he wanted to break through this barrier in a short period of time, the most direct and effective way was the foundation breaking pill. If he was an expert in the late stage of the foundation building realm and wanted to break through to the peak of the late stage of the foundation building realm, one foundation breaking pill might not be effective. But for him, who was in the early stage of the foundation building realm, it was almost 100% successful. For any cultivator, the most enjoyable thing in the world was always a breakthrough in strength. Senior Marshall Brother Ku Bai was naturally no exception. After a short while, Senior Marshall Brother Ku Bai came back with a basket of medicinal herbs. His speed was so fast that it made Linny dumbfounded. It turned out that this guy also had such a nimble time. Linny even suspected that he also had the gale-chasing lightning boots and the butterfly micro steps. Junior Marshall Brother Lin, come and check these medicinal herbs. See if they are enough. If not, I will think of a way to get more. Senior Marshall Brother Ku Bai panted heavily. Linny nodded and carefully checked the ingredients according to the recipe. Indeed, as Senior Brother Ku Qian had said, there were 3 sets of herbs here. That was to say, if he could successfully refine all of them, he could refine 3 foundation-breaking pills. Even if the probability of accidental failure was taken into account, the most pessimistic estimate was that with so many materials, at least one would be guaranteed to succeed. These herbs are more than enough. Linny then looked at Senior Brother Kubai and said with some doubt, Senior Brother Kubai, you probably didn't know that I was an alchemist before. Did you prepare so many medicinal ingredients to get someone else to help you refine? According to common sense, Senior Marshal Brother Bittercorner was not an alchemist. If he urgently needed the Foundation Establishment barrier-breaking pill, he would at most gather spirit jades to buy it in the market square. He would not spend so much effort to gather so many medicinal ingredients. After all, no matter how many medicinal ingredients he had, they would not become pills. He still needed someone to help him refine them. Yes, I originally planned to go to the alchemy hall to apply, but the price is too high. I can't gather it in a short time. Since Junior Marshal Brother Lin can refine it, it couldn't be better. Senior Marshal Brother Kubai was glad. Alchemy hall? Lin Yi was stunned. Chapter 36:45. Yes, the Alchemy Hall is the same as the Spirit Jade Hall and the Welcome Pavilion. It's also an independent department outside of the 3 great pavilions. Almost all the alchemists in the North Island are gathered there, and they are responsible for refining elixirs for the disciples of the 3 great pavilions. The bitter senior brother paused and added, it is said that the treatment there is much better than other places. Junior Brother Lin, since you are an alchemist, maybe you can join them in the future. That was the only place that the 3 great pavilions couldn't interfere with. It was managed by the Pill Pavilion of Middle Island. It was founded by Master Zhang Liju back then, and even now, Master Zhang Liju was still the head of the Dan Pavilion. The alchemists in the Pill Hall have an extraordinary status. Of course, many alchemists have been privately bribed by the 3 pavilions, but it is also a cooperative relationship. Even if Su Lingchong wants to mess with you, it is basically very difficult. Without any benefits, those alchemists will not work hard for him. Oh, does that mean that if I join the hall, I'll be able to meet Master Zhang Liju? Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. How is that possible? Although it was managed by Gue Dan Hall in name, the refiners were all born and bred in the North Island. Only those at the level of the head of the Dan Hall could go to the Center Island to hand in the harvest and take back the materials. But that was only for a few days, and they had to come back after that. How could they meet Master Zhang Liju? Is it that easy to see? The bitter senior brother shook his head. If that's the case, then we'll talk about this when the time comes. Lin Yi shook his head non-committally. Although he could concoct pills, he still relied on Han Jingjing's modified armament cauldron. He wasn't a pure refiner. Plus, his main mission now was to go to Zhongdao to find Zhang Liju. Unless he was promoted to Pavilion Master, it would probably be very difficult for him to get the mission to go to Middle Island, right? Even the Pavilion Master. Even if he went there, he would have to come back soon. There wasn't much point in going there. Besides, he didn't want the secret of his alchemy to be discovered by others. After all, if this cauldron was known by others, it would bring him endless trouble. Putting aside this thought, Lin Yi changed the topic and asked, Senior Brother Ku, you mentioned that you need to pay a high price to find the pill hall to refine pills? Of course, it's not easy to trouble those people from the pill hall to refine recovery pills. Senior Brother Kubai said with lingering fear, according to the rules of the pill hall. To refine any kind of medicinal pill, we will need to provide 2 sets of ingredients. Furthermore, we will need to hand over a considerable amount of spirit jades. If it is an unpopular medicinal pill, we will have to find a way to provide the pill recipe ourselves. If we want to make pills, we have to provide 2 sets of materials, and we have to pay a large amount of spirit jade. Junior Brother Lin, do you think this price is too high? Pill. The price is? This price is indeed a little exaggerated. This is Master Pill Master of his Pill Great. The Pill Hall is Spirit, Pill Master is as good as 2. We're Pill Sect Master of Pill. The total value of the 2 sets of herbs was only a dozen or so spiritual jades. As long as one put in some effort, they could still be collected. This was still within the range of a normal cultivator. But the extra 200 spirit jade was too much. A low-level steward like the bitter senior brother wouldn't be able to save up so many spirit jade without 10 years of hard work. Paying such a huge price, if they can guarantee a success rate, then it will be worth it. After all, the Foundation Establishment barrier-breaking pill sold in the market is priced at 400 spirit jades. If they can exchange it for one Foundation-breaking pill, it's worth it. The bitter senior brother laughed bitterly and continued, but the problem is, the pill hall can't guarantee the success rate. The pill hall can't guarantee the success rate. If you can refine 2 pills with these 2 sets of materials, then you can only get one of them. If you can only refine one, you'll be lucky. I'll give you the other one. But if all of them fail, then all the materials and the 200 spirit jade will go down the drain. You won't get a single cent back. Then wouldn't this be a huge gamble? This pill hall is really shady. Lin Yi couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Spending 400 spiritual jades, one could directly buy a foundation-building barrier-breaking pill in the market square. If one went to the pill hall to refine it, they would have to provide 2 sets of ingredients and 200 spiritual jades. This way, there was a certain chance of getting a foundation-building barrier-breaking pill. Of course, there was also the possibility of losing everything. For an ordinary cultivator like Senior Marshal Brother Bye-Bye, this was simply a huge gamble with his entire family's life. According to Lin Yi's knowledge, to most pill masters, the higher the grade of the pill, the lower the success rate. That was to say, for a 4th grade pill like the foundation-breaking pill, the chances of failure were much higher than the chances of success. If the bitter senior brother gritted his teeth and saved up 200 spirit jade to find the pill hall, there was at least a 60% chance of losing everything. Of course, if there were 2 sets of materials, the success rate would be higher. But it was also a huge risk. This was also the source of his excitement and eagerness just now. After all, he looked for Lin Yi to help refine the pill. Even if the success rate was lower than those pill masters, it didn't matter. After all, he only needed to provide the materials. Compared to the high price of 200 spirit jade, such a loss was negligible. The spirit jade that Lin Yi gave him just now could buy another 5 sets of materials. What was there to worry about? Junior brother Lin, I'll leave the matter of refining the pill to you. But you don't have to feel any pressure. It's naturally what I want to be happy about. But it doesn't matter if it fails. It doesn't take much effort to collect these materials. The bitter senior brother said sincerely. Lin Yi nodded. Rest assured, senior brother Ku. I'm confident. Seeing Lin Yi's expression, although the bitter senior brother still felt that his junior brother Lin was a bit blindly confident, he still didn't dare to undermine his confidence. He had to say, when do you plan to refine the pill? I'll find a way to ask for a few days' leave from the Spirit Jade Hall. Even a layman like the bitter senior brother knew that refining the pill had always been extremely exhausting on the mind and physical strength. Especially refining a high-grade pill, it was very likely to take a few days. If Lin Yi went to the mining area every day before refining the pill and didn't take a good rest, the process was very likely to have problems. Failure in refining the pill was considered light. Maybe Lin Yi himself would be injured. After all, the alchemist who died from furnace explosion was not 1 or 2. The risk could be imagined. Chapter 3646. What? Tonight? Well, I won't bother you anymore. Brother Ku nodded after listening to Lin Yi's explanation. He wasn't an elixir refiner after all, and he didn't know much about these things. After sending senior brother Ku out of the cave residence, Lin Yi then entered the space of the jade pendant and put all 3 medicinal materials into the magic pesticide cauldron, ready to start alchemy. With the automatic magic pesticide cauldron modified by Han Jingjing, alchemy was a very simple thing for Lin Yi. As long as the materials were put in, the only thing to do was to continuously input the true qi of heaven stage great perfection according to the instructions on the medicine cauldron. From the beginning to the end, it was a completely idiot-like operation, without any technical difficulty. The only test was that the supply of true qi of heaven stage great perfection could not be interrupted. If it was in the past when Lin Yi was still in the heaven realm great perfection, this would be a big challenge. After all, the alchemy process would take at least a few hours. If he kept going all out during the process, he might be exhausted at any time. However, for the current Lin Yi, there was no such concern at all. After all, he was now an expert in the early stage of foundation establishment. It was naturally easy to supply true qi of heaven stage great perfection. Although in terms of medicinal efficacy, the foundation establishment barrier breaking pill was weaker than the foundation establishment pill that Lin Yi had been preparing to refine before. For Lin Yi, who was sitting on the automatic magic pesticide cauldron, the refining process of the two was not much different. This was equivalent to an advanced training for refining the foundation establishment pill. After sorting out his mood and suppressing all kinds of distracting thoughts, Lin Yi sat cross-legged for a moment. After adjusting his physical state to the best, he officially began to refine the pill. According to the fire attribute, refining time, and method provided on the elixir prescription, all of them were input on a tablet next to the magic pesticide cauldron. He saw on the screen that, please wait, Jingjing is calculating the alchemy time and temperature curve for Brother Lin Yi, generating an automatic alchemy script. Looking at the above line of text, Lin Yi was a little emotional. Han Jingjing also came to the Heaven Stage Island. I don't know which island she is on now. How is he doing? However, thinking about it, with Han Jingjing's intelligence, if she really couldn't join the pill hall, she would be an awesome character. Beep beep. The tablet emitted 2 clear beeps. Lin Yi looked up and saw the tablet display. Alchemy script generated. Automatically analyzing according to the weight of the medicine cauldron. There will be 3 sets of ingredients for this alchemy. The estimated duration of the alchemy is 4 hours and 55 minutes. Please accumulate your true qi in advance. The estimated number of pills produced is 5. Only 5 hours? Lin Yi couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. But when he saw the number, he couldn't help but be happy. He could actually refine 5 pills. However, this was only for Lin Yi and Han Jingjing. If it was someone else, they could only refine it one by one. Success was success, failure was failure. With Lin Yi's mass production, even the scraps could be combined into a new pill. Naturally, the efficiency of forming pills was extremely high. He sat cross-legged. Lin Yi started to circulate the art of dragon mastery. He quickly poured the true qi in his body into the automatic god pesticide cauldron. The medicine cauldron emitted a clear light buzz. On the tablet beside it, the words, starting refining, warming up, also appeared. Beside it was a countdown timer. Then, the medicine cauldron began to slowly heat up. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, it finally gradually entered the state of alchemy. Under Han Jingjing's genius modification, as long as the vital energy was continuously infused, the internal program would automatically adjust the intensity and temperature of the fire. The excess vital energy would be stored in the energy stones at the bottom of the medicine cauldron. If the vital energy was really exhausted when the alchemy was about to be completed, the medicine cauldron would detect that the vital energy was insufficient and automatically use the vital energy stored in the energy stones to replenish the vital energy. However, energy stones were more than enough for level 3 elixirs. A large energy stone could be used to refine a level 3 elixir. Even Lin Yi, who could refine several elixirs at once, only needed 1 energy stone and some of Lin Yi's pure energy to complete the task. However, a grade 4 medicinal pill was out of the question. The amount of true qi required to refine a single one was enormous. Not to mention a single energy stone. Even 10 or 20 energy stones would be considered pretty good. Therefore, Lin Yi planned to see if he could change the energy stones in the medicine cauldron into spiritual jades. This way, he could replenish more true qi and prevent the alchemy from failing. However, Lin Yi did not dare to modify it blindly. He did not understand these things. If the modification was broken, then it would be terrible. Therefore, it was better to work hard for himself first. If he could meet Han Jingjing in the future, then he would ask her to help him modify it. Under the control of the true qi generated from the alchemy fire, the medicinal ingredients in the medicine cauldron began to change bit by bit. This process was slow and gentle. If it was an ordinary person, they would not be able to notice it at all. However, this was precisely the process that alchemists enjoyed the most. However, Lin Yi could not enjoy it. He did not know what was going on in the medicine cauldron. He was looking at the tablet next to him. Time passed bit by bit. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours had passed. The medicinal properties and spiritual qi of all the medicinal ingredients in the automatic magic pesticide cauldron had been completely released under the control of the alchemy fire. The degree of fullness was incredible. If the medicinal properties and spiritual qi of each individual medicinal herb were one, then at this moment, the 30 medicinal herbs in the medicine cauldron were mixed together. After the complex catalysis of the alchemy fire and various auxiliary materials, the result was not a simple addition of 1 and 1. It was far more than 300, but 3,000 or even 30,000. Such a majestic medicinal properties and spiritual qi, even the automatic magic pesticide cauldron could not bear it. It began to buzz continuously. In the space of the jade pendant, one could even smell a trace of medicinal fragrance from it. Oh no! Lin Yi, who had always been calm, suddenly changed his expression. Although he had unparalleled confidence in this automatic magic pesticide cauldron, this performance was a bit abnormal. After all, it was still far from the time when the medicine cauldron was producing pills. Could it be that there was an accident in the medicine cauldron? Lin Yi felt uneasy in his heart. However, things had come to this point. He could not give up halfway. He could only bite the bullet and continue. Chapter 36-47. Although he had never encountered such a problem before, the foundation establishment barrier-breaking pill he was concocting this time was a real fourth-grade pill. Who knew what kind of accident would happen during the process? With this kind of apprehension in his heart, Lin Yi continued to be on tenterhooks for another 2 hours. Fortunately, during these 2 hours, although the medicinal cauldron was constantly humming, no other accidents occurred. This caused Lin Yi to let out a sigh of relief while trembling with fear. Finally, with the last buzzing sound that was even clearer and clearer than before, the pill refinement finally came to an end. At this time, even Lin Yi, who was used to remaining calm in the face of danger, was scared out of his wits. The first 2 hours were fine. Everything was under control, but the last 2 hours were 2F*King torturous. If it were someone with a weak mind, they would have been scared out of their wits. After calming himself down and stabilizing his breathing, Lin Yi stood up and opened the god pesticide cauldron in front of him. As soon as the lid of the cauldron was opened, a rich medicinal fragrance immediately spread throughout the entire space of the jade pendant. Lin Yi only had to take a whiff to immediately feel refreshed and relaxed. From the looks of it, it should be a success, right? Lin Yi looked into the medicine cauldron with anticipation. After carefully searching for a moment, he was suddenly stunned. Lin Yi turned his head to look at the display on the tablet, and he finally understood. F***ing. No wonder he had been behaving so strangely since 2 hours ago. No wonder he almost became mentally ill. So this was the source of all the abnormalities. At this moment, at the entrance of the 14th cave at the foot of the mountain, Senior Brother Ku Bai was waiting anxiously. If it was said that Lin Yi was only worried for the last 2 hours, then Senior Brother Ku Bai had been nervous for the whole night. After all, whether or not Lin Yi could refine the foundation-breaking pill was directly related to whether or not he could shoulder Lu Bianren's entrustment in the future. When facing Meng Jueguang, a bitter senior brother in the early stage of foundation building and a bitter senior brother in the peak of the early stage of foundation building had completely different meanings. The foundation establishment barrier-breaking pill was Senior Martial Brother's only hope for a breakthrough. If Lin Yi was unable to successfully refine it, then his hope would be reduced to a bubble. Apart from Lin Yi, if he wanted to refine pills, he could only look for the Dan Hall. Even if Lin Yi had given him 30 pieces of spiritual jades last night, in addition to the spiritual jades he had accumulated, it was still far from enough for the 200 spiritual jades required by the Dan Hall. Not to mention that even if 200 spirit jades were gathered, the pill hall's pill masters might not be able to successfully refine it. While waiting anxiously, seeing that the sky was bright, The bitter senior marshal brother was pondering whether he should go to the Spirit Jade Hall to ask for a day's leave for Lin Yi, when the door to the number 14 Immortals Cave at the foot of the mountain finally opened, and Lin Yi walked out. Huh, senior marshal brother Ku, you didn't stay here all night last night, did you? Lin Yi saw senior marshal brother Ku waiting at the door and was stunned, and couldn't help but ask in surprise. Hey, I was just nervous. Anyway, I can't rest when I go back, so I might as well wait here. Senior marshal brother Ku smiled awkwardly, and then said with a nervous face, How was it? Was the refining successful? It was rare for senior marshal brother Ku to be so nervous. Lin Yi couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. Senior marshal brother Ku's heart suddenly tightened, and he stammered, failed? But it's nothing, just a dozen or so spiritual jades. Senior marshal brother Ku thought about it. If he failed, at most he would lose materials, and it really was nothing. Lin Yi didn't speak, and stretched out his hand. On his palm lay 2 snow-white pills, with a strong medicinal fragrance and the shape and shape. It was the well-known Foundation Establishment barrier-breaking pill. Gulp. Senior marshal brother Ku swallowed hard. At first, he was a little incredulous, but after confirming it, he was wild with joy and said, You actually succeeded? You're really something, junior marshal brother Lin. No wonder even senior marshal brother Lu praised you for hiding your strength. To be honest, although he wholeheartedly hoped that Lin Yi could successfully refine it, senior marshal brother Ku still felt that Lin Yi might not be able to compare to the alchemists in the pill hall. After all, those people were the mainstream of the North Island, and although Lin Yi was also an alchemist, he came from the secular world and was not at the same level as these people. Even the success rate of these local alchemists in the North Island was so low, so the success rate of Lin Yi, a secular alchemist, could only be lower. But he didn't expect that in just one night, Lin Yi could take out 2 Foundation Establishment barrier-breaking pills at once. This was like a dream. It wasn't that senior marshal brother Ku looked down on the secular world of practitioners, but that was the truth in terms of Foundation. The secular world of practitioners was on a completely different level from Sky-class Island, and elixir making was precisely where Foundation was needed the most. According to what senior marshal brother Ku knew, in the secular world of practitioners, there was only one person who could look down on the local refiners of Sky-class Island, Miracle Dr. Zhang Liju. But what he didn't know was that the Lin Yi standing in front of him right now was Zhang Liju's disciple. Lin Yi grinned and handed the 2 elixirs to Ku by Shixiao. 2 barrier-breaking elixirs. This should be enough to ensure that you can break through the barrier. Unexpectedly, senior marshal brother Ku only took one and said gratefully, One is enough for me, keep the rest for yourself after all. You'll need to use it sooner or later. Seeing that Lin Yi still wanted to refuse, senior marshal brother Ku quickly said, If it was someone else's school, if they made 2 at once, not only would they have to keep one, but I'd also have to pay 200 spirit jades in advance. That's already a huge advantage for me. So please don't reject me, junior marshal brother Lin, otherwise, I won't be able to rest easy. Haha, senior marshal brother Ku, when did I tell you that I only made 2 Foundation Establishment barrier-breaking pills? Lin Yi smiled and asked back, Huh? More than 2? Could it be 3? Senior marshal brother Ku's brain stopped working. He only provided 3 sets of ingredients, and Lin Yi successfully made 3 Foundation Establishment barrier-breaking pills in one go. Didn't that mean that he had a 100% success rate? Even if Lin Yi said that using waste jades could increase the success rate, wasn't that too much of an exaggeration? If this were to spread, those so-called refiners of the school would be embarrassed to death. At this point, senior marshal brother Ku, who was overjoyed, didn't even realize that the 2 Foundation Establishment barrier-breaking pills that Lin Yi gave him had rings of pill halo. Even if it was the same type of pill, there was a world of difference between those with pill halo and those without. Chapter 36-48. Lin Yi smiled noncommittally and stuffed the Foundation Establishment bottleneck-breaking pill in his hand to senior brother Ku, saying, So, senior brother Ku, you can accept it without worry. Although one foundation establishment bottleneck breaking pill is enough to break through from the early stage of foundation establishment to the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment, it's better to have double insurance. Besides, even if you can't use the second one this time, you can use it the next time you break through to the middle stage of foundation establishment, right? Well, thank you, junior brother Lin. Senior brother Ku thought for a while and finally accepted it. But in his heart, he was thinking that the favor he owed Lin was getting bigger and bigger. How could he pay it back? Taking advantage of the fact that Lin Yi's strength was not particularly strong, he would do everything possible to protect him. This might be the only way to repay him. The bitter guy couldn't help but smile bitterly. He was the senior brother here, so why was he the one receiving all the favors from Lin Yi? It seemed like it was just as Lu Shixiang had said. His Lin Yi wasn't an ordinary person. He was going to soar into the sky sooner or later. Carefully putting away the 2 foundation establishment bottleneck breaking pills, senior brother Ku said something to Lin Yi and could not wait to go back to prepare for the breakthrough. And Lin Yi looked up at the sky. He did not look tired after a hard night and went to Jade's Spirit Hall to mine as usual. It was not that he was not tired, but people were in high spirits when they encountered happy events. He was happy at this time. As for the reason, it was naturally the result of last night's alchemy, which gave him a big surprise. This surprise was not the 3 foundation establishment bottleneck breaking pills that senior brother Ku made up for himself. In fact, when he opened the medicine cauldron to check, he finally found the pills inside. But there were 6 of them. There was actually one more than the original estimate of the tablet. Finally, the tablet showed a sentence. Congratulations, big brother Lin Yi. One more than expected. This really made Lin Yi not know whether to laugh or cry. But later, Lin Yi also kept thinking about this question. Why was there one more? In the end, the conclusion was that the herbs on Heaven Stage Island were more abundant in spirit energy than those in the secular world, so the quality would be higher. Then with the same number of herbs, naturally, he would be able to refine more pills. There were no less than 6 foundation establishment barrier breaking pills, and every single one of them had a faint glow. This was also the root cause of the continuous abnormal reactions of the godly pesticide cauldron during the process of alchemy. Clearly, only 3 sets of medicinal materials were put in, and 5 pills were expected, but in the end, 6 foundation-breaking pills were refined, and each of them was of the highest quality that could only be encountered by luck. How could this matter be explained? 3 sets of medicinal ingredients produced 6 pills at once. As for the cauldron, it was still refined according to the procedure of refining 5 cauldrons. As a result, a strange phenomenon occurred. Lin Yi reckoned that it was fortunate that this was a divine armament cauldron. If it was an ordinary grade 4 cauldron, the cauldron would have exploded. However, Han Jingjing should have considered the possibility of refining an extra pill in such a sudden manner. Otherwise, there wouldn't be that last sentence. Therefore, although it was dangerous, Han Jingjing must have taken precautions, which was why she was able to successfully refine it. This was a grade 4 pill, and she actually refined a total of 6 pills at once. If this kind of thing were to be spread, it would simply blind the dog eyes of all the alchemists. Wanting to die from shame was already a light punishment. They might even have to capture Lin Yi and dissect him for research. Only by cutting him into 1,000 pieces could the hatred in their hearts be dispelled. Comparing oneself to others was infuriating. With a freak like Lin Yi, how could those alchemists in the pill hall, who were full of superiority, continue to live? People of the same trade were enemies. This saying was indeed true. But fortunately, this time, the matter of Lin Yi refining the foundation establishment barrier breaking pill, whether it was senior brother Ku Bai or Lin Yi himself, they would strictly keep it a secret. An ordinary man is innocent, but treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. This saying wasn't just for show. If it was really spread out, it would cause a huge disaster. At that time, a good thing would become a bad thing. This was obviously not in line with the low-key strategy that Lin Yi had always pursued. Before his strength was strong enough to crush everything, maintaining a low profile and silently making a fortune, this was the best choice to settle down in this heavenly stage island. 6 foundation establishment barrier breaking pills. He gave 2 to senior brother Ku Bai. Lin still had 4 in his hands. After a while, he would refine the foundation establishment pill. With the combination of these 2 pills, in the future, he wouldn't have to worry about raising his strength at this stage of foundation establishment. For the next period of time, for Lin, his daily routine was to report to the Spirit Jade Hall and then stay in the number 10 mining area for a day. As Lin selectively hid 2 to 3 pieces of waste jade every day, as a result, the number of good jade that he finally handed over fluctuated between 8 to 12 pieces. As a dead mining area recognized as the worst, to be able to dig out so many good jade every day, this was definitely a matter that would make people's jaws drop. But when this happened to Lin, everyone was somewhat used to it. If it was in the past, people like Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong would inevitably get in the way and try to find out what was wrong. But after experiencing the matter of going back and forth to change mining areas, the 2 of them had completely cut off this idea. Lin was just lucky to be able to dig out so many good jade in the number 10 mining area. What else could they do? If it was someone else who went in, it was guaranteed that they wouldn't be able to dig out even a piece of good jade. After the lesson of being disgraced last time, Meng Jueguang had already accepted this iron-like fact. Simply put it out of sight, out of mind. In his view, even if Lin could maintain such a high yield, he would at most be able to earn a remuneration of 3 pieces of spirit jade a month. And at that time, even if he got the remuneration, as long as he gave a greeting to his subordinates, the good jade in Lin Yi's hands would quickly be exchanged with waste jade by them. An idiot was an idiot. So what if he earned more spirit jade? In the end, it would still benefit them. Therefore, in this way, Meng Jueguang could not wait for Lin to dig out more jade. The more he dug out, the more benefits his own people would have later. Without the obstruction of Meng Jueguang and the others, Lin Yi's mining days were rather uneventful. And just when he thought that this peace would last until the 25th, on the day before the newcomers' trial that all the newcomers were looking forward to, an unexpected episode occurred. And the source of this episode was his rival, Meng Tong. On this day, Meng Tong went to the Spirit Jade Hall to report as usual. Chapter 3649. If that idiot Lin has a lot of good jades in his hands, that would be great. Meng Tong couldn't help but look forward to it. It was in his nature to love ease and hate work. Compared to working hard in the mining area every day, taking a few pieces of useless jades from Meng Jueguang to exchange for Lin Yi's good jades, this was more in line with his intentions. In fact, Meng Tong was starting to regret. He regretted that he had such a big mouth in the past and spilled the beans about Lin, that idiot who couldn't differentiate good jades and useless jades. Now that he thought about it, he was really stupid. If he hadn't spilled the beans, then the other newbies wouldn't have known that they could exchange useless jades with Lin, that idiot. In that case, wouldn't all the good jades in Lin Yi's hands belong to him? That was a total of 15 pieces of good jades. Even if he worked hard in the 7th mining area for 3 months, he wouldn't be able to earn even half of those 15 pieces. If that was the case, why would he need to work so hard in the mining area every day? He could just lie in the cave and count the spiritual jades for fun. However, this kind of good thing could only be thought of in his mind. No matter how stupid Meng Tong was, he knew that if that was the case, the good jades that he exchanged from Lin Yi's hands would most likely fall into Meng Jueguang's hands. At most, he would be able to eat some thin soup. After sighing for a while, Meng Tong could only continue to report to the mining area as usual. However, when he passed through the long underground corridor and was about to enter the mining area, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. What the hell? Meng Tong couldn't help but look around. In that instant, he clearly saw a black and white shadow scurrying in front of him. The movement was quite fast. If it was an ordinary person, they might not be able to react in time. However, no matter what, Meng Tong was still a heaven stage full circle expert. Although he didn't see it clearly, he could already confirm that the shadow that scurried in front of him was definitely a spiritual beast. A spiritual beast. That meat is much more delicious than the meat of ordinary wild beasts. Thinking of this, Meng Tong couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Logically speaking, when one's strength reached the level of a heaven stage expert, they would be able to completely abstain from eating. Through daily cultivation, they would be able to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, which would be far enough to satisfy their own needs. He no longer needed to consume food to replenish his energy. However, this didn't mean that all the experts above heaven rank didn't eat at all. In fact, out of habit, most of the cultivators would eat from time to time. Of course, it was no longer necessary for them to eat at this time. It was purely to satisfy their cravings. Take Ming Tong, for example. He had already become a heaven stage expert a few years ago and could abstain from eating. However, he still maintained the habit of eating all kinds of delicacies every day, and even went out to hunt a few rare beasts every few days for a sumptuous meal. Based on his experience, no matter how rare a wild beast's meat was, it was still inferior to a spirit beast's meat. One must know that spirit beasts were equivalent to cultivators among wild beasts. Even the weakest and lowest-ranked spirit beasts were existences of the essence of the world's spirit energy. Not only was their meat far more delicious than that of ordinary beasts, but it also contained spiritual energy. More importantly, it contained spiritual energy. Even for cultivators, it was a rare, nourishing item. Its effects could not be said to be comparable to medicinal pills, but it was not too far off. Before Ming Tong came to the Welcome Pavilion, he had taken many spirit beasts in the deep mountains and forests of the northern island as a sumptuous meal. Of course, they were all relatively weak yellow rank, or even no rank spirit beasts. Firstly, it wouldn't be too difficult to capture them. Secondly, it wouldn't cause too much of a commotion to attract other people's attention. This was the most important point. The Heaven Stage Island was different from the secular world. In the secular world, as long as one had the strength, he could hunt spirit beasts however he wanted. However, in the Heaven Stage Island, even if he hunted a weak spirit beast, once this matter was exposed, it would cause great trouble. There was no other reason. On the Heaven Stage Island, spirit beasts were cultivators like humans. They could even transform into human form after becoming strong enough. In the pursuit of the heavenly way, everyone was on equal footing with each other. The South Island of the Heaven Stage Island was known as the Spirit Beast Island. The powerful Spirit Beast clan gathered on the island. Its power and strength were not inferior to any human sect. The declaration issued by the Spirit Beast clan clearly stated that if anyone dared to hunt spirit beasts on the Heaven Stage Island, they would be regarded as the enemy of the entire Spirit Beast clan. They would not rest until they were dead. With the unremitting efforts of the Spirit Beast clan, this declaration was recognized by several top sects on the Middle Island. In this way, not only the spirit beasts on the South Island of the Heaven Stage Island, but the lives of the spirit beasts distributed on other islands were also guaranteed to a certain extent. However, the real sphere of influence of the Spirit Beast clan was ultimately limited to the South Island of the Heaven Stage Island. Although human experts from other places would have some taboos in public, they might not really take this declaration seriously in private. Just like a cultivator like Ming Tong who was used to having a sumptuous meal, he would never indiscriminately kill any spirit beasts in front of others. However, in private, the number of weak spirit beasts that had been eaten by him was at least 80, if not 100. In any case, as long as no one found out and reported him, it was fine. He had eaten everything clean without anyone knowing. I wonder what kind of spirit beast it is. Ming Tong's eyes lit up. He immediately turned his head and began to search for the shadow that he had seen just now. It had been more than 20 days since he had arrived at the Welcome Pavilion. Due to the surrounding environment, he had not been able to eat even a mouthful of meat. After holding back for so many days, his mouth had long become bland. At this time, a spirit beast had taken the initiative to deliver itself to him. How could he let it go? Both the inside and outside of the Spirit Jade Hall were heavily guarded. However, the corridor before the entrance to the mining area was not guarded at all. This was convenient for Ming Tong. After all, if there were guards everywhere, it would not be good for him to brazenly capture the spirit beast. Otherwise, he would be regarded as a suspicious person and arrested. However, Ming Tong searched around the corridor, but he could not find the shadow of the spirit beast just now. When he finally decided to give up and return to the mining area resentfully, he found the black and white figure in front of the door again. Circle Bear? Looking at the young figure in front of him that wanted to sneak into the door, Meng Tong's eyes suddenly widened. When it stood upright, it was not even half a person's height. It had a round head and a plump body. Its whole body was covered with milky white fur. Only the eyes, ears, and the circle of fur on its chest were dark. This was clearly a circle bear cub. Chapter 3650. However, it was a natural spiritual beast, and its lifespan was much longer than that of humans. Thus, it was still in its infancy. If it was an adult bear, even a heaven rank full circle like Meng Tong would have to take a detour. However, this cub in front of him was at most a golden rank middle phase. Ordinary people might not be able to do anything to it, but if Meng Tong wanted to catch it, it would be a piece of cake. However, the scene that happened next caused Meng Tong's jaw to drop. The cub seemed to be trying to sneak into the mining area. Unfortunately, the large metal door in front of it was too heavy. No matter how it scratched and pushed, it wouldn't budge at all. On the contrary, Dai Wuchang, who was dozing off on a nearby table, seemed to be woken up by the cub's scratching. What's with the noise? Dai Wuchang cursed in his sleep. The bear cub was scared out of its wits. It turned around and ran to the side, but it didn't even take 2 steps before it saw Meng Tong waiting there. It was so scared that it hurriedly turned around again. In its panic, it hit its head on a stone pillar and fainted. F***CK. There's such a stupid bear. It really came without any effort. Meng Tong was delighted. Wasn't this the old saying of waiting by a tree stump for a rabbit to come to it? Today was really a lucky day. He was destined to have a good meal. While no one was paying attention, Meng Tong immediately carried the unconscious cub on his shoulder, turned around and went into Meng Jueguang's private workshop not far away. Like other caves, private workshops in Jade Spirit Hall also had a forbidden spell. However, Meng Jueguang wanted to make it convenient for Meng Tong to run errands for him. He specially taught Meng Tong the method of entering and exiting this place. The reason why Meng Tong carried the cub here was because he had considered it. After all, the Spirit Jade Hall was heavily guarded inside and out. If he were to go out carrying the hoop bear, then this matter would not be clear. Not only would he not be able to eat the spiritual beast meat that was delivered to his mouth today, he might even be punished. But in Meng Jueguang's private workshop, there was no problem. Although it belonged to Jade Spirit Hall, it was still Meng Jueguang's personal space. Under normal circumstances, only Meng Jueguang could enter and exit this place. In front of others, Meng Tong might not have the guts to eat the spiritual beast meat, but Meng Jueguang was different. Not only was he backing him, but the two of them had a history of having a sumptuous meal together, so he could rest assured. When Meng Tong carried the cub in, Meng Jueguang wasn't there, so Meng Jueguang was happy to eat alone. He immediately threw the cub on the ground and began to busy himself. Although practitioners of Heaven Stage and above usually abstained from eating, Jade Spirit Hall's private workshop was very user-friendly. Not only was there all kinds of washing facilities, there was even a special place to start a fire. This was obviously to satisfy some people's cravings. Of course, the original intention of this setting was definitely not for people to roast spiritual beasts. This made things convenient for Meng Tong. He couldn't wait to boil the hot water. He couldn't wait to remove the fur of the cub. But looking at the round body on the ground, especially the pair of furry bear paws, he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. This was a spiritual beast that could only be encountered by chance. Although Meng Tong had a lot of sumptuous meals in the past. However, this was the first time a bear was being held in a pen, especially when it was a cub. After all, the number of individual cub was very small. It was an extremely rare spiritual beast. Secondly, even if one was lucky enough to encounter one deep in the mountains, it would definitely be an adult cub and not a lone cub. And if it was an adult cub, don't talk about having a good meal. With Meng Tong's meager strength, it would be more like a sumptuous meal. Just as Ming Tong was busy boiling the water, the bear cub that he had knocked unconscious earlier finally woke up. Woo woo! Its round head turned around, and when it saw Ming Tong, who was extremely busy, the cub seemed to realize that the situation was not good. Taking advantage of the fact that Ming Tong wasn't paying attention to it, it tactfully snuck towards the door. When it was about to reach the door, it abruptly sped up and scurried out. Unfortunately, it didn't know that there was a forbidden spell at the door. With a bang, it bounced back. Oh, you stupid cub. You actually want to escape from this daddy's palms. When Ming Tong heard the sound, he was shocked. Only then did he notice that this little fellow had woken up on its own. Woo 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 woo. The cub stood up straight and gritted its teeth at Ming Tong, pretending to be fierce. But while it pretended to be fierce, its two short legs kept moving backwards. Ming Tong was amused. He crossed his arms and looked at it calmly. This little bastard actually knew how to play tricks. There really were all kinds of birds in a big forest. As expected, when the cub saw that Ming Tong was unmoved, it quietly approached the door again and suddenly turned around to rush out. However, before it could hit the forbidden spell again, Ming Tong's big foot had already landed on its chest. With one kick, it was sent flying for 30 feet and smashed into the wall on the other side of the room. Pada! The little fellow collapsed on the ground. There was a clear footprint on its chest. Although it didn't die from the kick, it was seriously injured and was on the verge of death. It was no longer as lively as before. No matter what, Ming Tong was a heaven stage full circle expert. Even if he didn't use his full strength, it wasn't something a cub could withstand. TSK. You want to fight with me, Ming Tong, with this little bit of intelligence? You really don't know how to write the word death. Ming Tong cursed. At this moment, the water was boiling. He immediately picked up the cub from the ground and prepared to kill it before throwing it into the boiling water to remove its fur. However, just as he was about to make his move, Meng Jueguang's surprised voice came from behind. What are you doing? Ninth cousin brother, you're back. Meng Tong hurriedly turned around and presented the cub to Meng Jueguang like he was presenting a treasure. He said excitedly, Ninth cousin brother, what do you think this is? Meng Jueguang looked at the thing in Meng Tong's hand and felt that it looked familiar. He said, that's right. This is a circle bear. Moreover, it's a rare cub. I just caught it at the entrance of the mining area. Today, we can have a feast. Meng Tong's face was full of joy. However, after hearing his words, Meng Jueguang's face turned pale. He pointed at Meng Tong and stammered, This was caught at the entrance of the mining area? Chapter 36:51. However, before he could finish his sentence, Meng Jueguang slapped him in the face and scolded, You're the idiot. If you want to die, go ahead. Why did you come to my room? Do you know what kind of background this guy has? You even want to eat it. You really don't know how to write the word die. Ninth cousin brother, if you have something to say, don't hit me. Meng Tong was confused. He was chased around the room by Meng Jueguang and almost suffered internal injuries. After a while, looking at Meng Tong's miserable appearance, Meng Jueguang finally calmed down a little. He looked at the curly bear cub lying on the ground and scolded, Luckily, I came back in time. Otherwise, if this little thing was really killed by you, both of our corpses would be left in the wilderness. Neither of us would have a good death. You're exaggerating, right? Isn't it just a curly bear cub? Meng Tong looked at Meng Jueguang with a bitter expression. Just a curly bear cub? Meng Jueguang suddenly exploded in anger and said, Sooner or later, I will die because of you. Idiot! Do you know who its owner is? Its owner is called Shangguan Laner. Shangguan Laner? Who is that? Meng Tong was still confused. Meng Jueguang looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot. He sighed with lingering fear and said, You don't know Shangguan Laner, but you should know her grandfather, Shangguan Tianhua, the pavilion master of Chongtian Pavilion, Shangguan Tianhua. Meng Tong was so scared that he wet his pants. Unlike ordinary grassroots rookies like Lin Yi, Meng Tong had a close relationship with Meng Jueguang. He had heard Meng Jueguang mention the names of these upper-class people, and this Soaring Sky Pavilion's pavilion master was Shanghai Tianhua. He was one of the top 3 big shots in the whole North Island. This thing is Tianhua's granddaughter's pet? After figuring this out, Meng Tong immediately felt that his life was bleak. His life was about to come to an end. He even wanted to eat the spirit pet of the granddaughter of the Soaring Sky Pavilion's pavilion master. Even if he was courting death, this was not the way to do it. What do you think? You fool. Why don't you use your brain and think about it? If this thing didn't have this kind of background, if it wasn't for the guards turning a blind eye to it, would it be able to sneak into the Spirit Jade Hall with just this bit of strength? Do you think everyone is as stupid as you? Meng Jueguang rolled his eyes. If it weren't for the fact that this guy was his relative, Meng Jueguang even had the thought of arresting Meng Tong and surrendering himself to the authorities. Once this matter was known by Shangguan Lan'er, the beloved daughter of the Soaring Sky Pavilion's pavilion master, he wouldn't even know how he died. Then what should we do now? Meng Tong stammered with a pale face. Fortunately, this thing hasn't been killed by you. Didn't you just say that it fainted by itself? Then it shouldn't be injured. Let's throw it out and pretend that nothing happened. Meng Jueguang took a deep breath and said. As a result, Meng Tong buried his head even lower. He said weakly, it wasn't injured at first, but it woke up halfway and wanted to escape. Then I kicked it. Shit. Meng Jueguang was speechless. After checking the little guy's weak breath at the moment, he even wanted to kill Meng Tong. What kind of stupid teammate is this? Meng Jueguang did not give up and pressed on the curly bear cub's chest. As a result, the little guy started to foam at the mouth. He was shocked and became even angrier. Are you King crazy? Do you need to be so ruthless to deal with such a little thing? This can't be blamed on me. I didn't use much strength. It was just a light kick. Who knew that a spirit beast would be so weak? Meng Tong scratched his head innocently. In fact, his kick just now was quite heavy. He was afraid that this little thing would continue to make a noise and attract people outside. That would be a big trouble. In the end, with this kick, he was in even more trouble now. Looking at the clear footprint on the curly bear cub's chest, even Meng Tong couldn't help but panic. He rolled his eyes and hurriedly said, why don't we just throw it out? No one will know that I kicked it anyway. You're an idiot. You think that everyone is an idiot like you. Meng Jueguang scolded him and said with contempt, after people find this footprint, won't they find someone to compare it with? Let me tell you, with Miss Shangguan's personality, even if she turns the whole Spirit Jade Hall upside down, she will definitely find the murderer who killed her spirit pet. At that time, just wait to die. Then what should we do? Meng Tong was frightened by this and wanted to cry. He was at a loss and said, why don't we secretly throw it out? No one can find it in the wilderness, right? Originally, it would be a more reliable way to eat this little thing directly according to the original idea. After all, they could not see the bear alive or the corpse. Even if people wanted to check, they might not be able to find Meng Tong. But now that he knew the terrifying background of this little thing, how could Meng Tong dare to have such a rebellious idea? Not to mention eating it. At this time, even looking at it made him feel frightened. At this moment, the only thought in his mind was to throw it as far away as possible. It would be best to throw it thousands of miles away and never see it again in this life. Meng Jueguang looked at him with a hopeless look. Throw it in the wilderness? Do you think you can escape like this? Miss Shangguan can mobilize hundreds and thousands of experts with a casual word. Even searching the entire Heaven Stage Island's North Island is easy. Moreover, how do you know that she doesn't have a special way to find spirit pets? Then what should we do? The footprint on its chest can't be removed in a short time. We can't frame others? Cousin Jiao, you can't just watch it die. Meng Tong said with a sad face. He was really scared this time. If he could escape this disaster, it was estimated that it would leave a psychological shadow for the rest of his life, and he would never dare to eat spirit beasts again. Frame others? Meng Jueguang's eyes lit up when he heard this. He patted his thigh and said, this is a way. Can this work? Mingtong said doubtfully. Cousin Jiao, the shoes on my feet are uniformly issued by Ingsin Pavilion. People just need to compare the shoe print, and they will know that it was done by a newcomer in Ingsin Pavilion. At that time, they will call all the newcomers out to compare. Isn't it still impossible to escape? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.